In this ninja world, I'm the one in charge now. Uzumaki Naraku. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 326 Terrain Advantage. Outside Sand Hidden Village, boom, there was a sound of breaking ground, and a thick wooden dragon quickly emerged from the ground. The whole body of the wooden dragon is composed of dark blue branches, and its whole body is covered with sharp barbs, which looks very powerful. Would escape, wood dragon's technique. At this time, the first generation opposite had also completed the seal. Coincidentally, the opponent also used the wood dragon technique. In an instant, an equally thick wood dragon broke out of the ground. The two wooden dragons looked at each other from a distance on the field. The next moment, both sides moved at the same time. Almost instantly, they collided with each other. Boom. The moment the two collided, there was a huge impact, and for a while, dark blue sawdust flew away in all directions. He is worthy of being called the god of ninja. Even in this state, he can use the same ninjutsu as me with no difference. Naraku thought to himself, how about trying this trick? The next moment, a powerful pupil power burst out from the right eye, and instantly, a cluster of black flames appeared on the first generation's body. Black flame thunder. Not far away, Orochimaru, who was fighting Jiraiya, instantly shrank his pupils. He had seen the power of this black flame before. Without hesitation, he formed a seal with one hand, and a burst of chakra quickly surged out. The first generation took action instantly. He quickly grabbed the red armor on his body and threw it directly to the ground. The black flames also left his body along with the armor. Forehead. Could this be imitating me, Mr. Madara? Naraku was slightly startled, maybe because he had been in this ninja world for so long. He almost forgot this move. Ninja technique. Lion chaos technique. Suddenly, a loud shout rang out on the field, and Jiraiya's unruly long hair was seen growing rapidly, and then it was like a steel needle, and it was fiercely drawn towards Orochimaru's body. Jiraiya, you are really annoying. Orochimaru whispered in his mouth. A sharp light flashed in his pale pupils, and then a white bone blade quickly stretched out from his palm. The bone blade struck hard at the long hair that was like a steel needle in front of him. Stab it. In an instant, the tick created a burst of dazzling sparks in the air. On the other hand, the first generation also started to get serious at this time. Would escape. The flower and tree world is born. Boom. Countless thick trees emerged from the ground. Winding vines grew rapidly and danced like ferocious dragons. The next moment, huge pink flowers bloomed on the huge and dense vines. As the flowers bloomed, unusually rich yellow pollen emitted from the inside and spread around. Facing the pollen that could flick stun Susanoo, Naraku didn't dare to be careless at all, and a blue lighted on his body. Noisy blue arcs of electricity appeared around him, and the violent thunder attribute chakra would directly destroy the pollen the moment it came into contact. Obviously, the first generation under the control of Orochimaru at this time had begun to become serious. He did not hesitate to consume a lot of chakra to use this kind of ninjutsu that could change the terrain. In fact, for ninjas, the main reason why they spend a lot of chakra to use such large scale ninjutsu is because they can change the terrain. Just like Kisame and Gaara. The former can even summon a lake in the desert to enhance its terrain advantage. Gaara, on the other hand, can crush the minerals in the ground and turn them into his own sand, changing the terrain and turning it into a desert and turning it into his home field. This is the importance of terrain advantage. The same is true for the first generation flower tree world in front of him. In this forest, everything can become his weapon. If the enemy is a little careless, he will be destroyed. Wooden release. The art of cutting. At this time, the first generation put his hands together, and countless wooden thorns separated from the huge branches in an instant. Call out, call out, call out. In an instant, hundreds of wooden spikes tore through the air and rushed towards Naraku at great speed. Naraku's eyes narrowed at this. Chakra surged through his body, and in an instant, thick golden chains sprang out from his back. The chains danced like golden pythons, forming a golden shield in front of him. Boom, boom, boom. There were violent trembling sounds, and all the wooden thorns were blocked by the shield point at this moment. The first generation in front of him focused his attention on the golden chain in front of him. His dull eyes trembled slightly for a few moments, but they soon returned to their original state, and his eyes became dull. At this moment, several thick vines below suddenly started to move. They began to move quickly, like circling dragons, winding towards Naraku's body. When Naraku saw this, a black long knife appeared in his hand. The long knife was covered with lightning, and he slashed directly forward. Instantly, a burst of sparks flickered. Click. Although the vine was very strong, it was still cut off by the sharp black knife. But at this moment, Naraku suddenly felt a pain in his back. I saw a thick vine falling on his back at some point, and instantly he felt a burning pain. Crack. Crack. A violent blow-up of electricity erupted from Naraku's body and spread in all directions. He wanted to use lightning to repel the vines, but a scene that surprised him soon appeared. He saw that the blow-ups falling on the vines did not cause any ripples, but were directly absorbed by the vines. Only then did Naraku remember that the wood release ninjutsu could absorb other people's chakra point originally. He thought that Mudun could only absorb the chakra in the human body, but he did not expect that it could even absorb the chakra that had been released and had changed form. Just when Naraku was shocked, a thick vine had taken the opportunity to wrap around his body. Naraku tried to break free from the vines, but found that the other party was motionless. The next moment, a burst of light blue energy surged out of the vines, and Naraku frowned slightly. He clearly felt that his chakra was being absorbed by the vines in response. Naraku reacted immediately. His left eye pupil power exploded, and his eyes were locked on the space behind the first generation point swish. Activating Shunkung, his figure disappeared in an instant, and came behind the first generation point guy. Without any hesitation, Naraku's body trembled with thunder, and the black in his hand was covered with dense thunder and lightning. And then he swung forward suddenly. Point guy, a bolt of thunder and lightning burst out from the long sword point. The thunder and lightning sword light was extremely fast, and it had already landed on his back when the first generation had just reacted. Point in an instant, the exploding thunder and lightning blade tore his reincarnated body into pieces, but just when Naraku wanted to take action again, a thick vine blocked him. Chapter 327 The second generation water escape. He is no match for me. Water escape. Water rushes into waves. A tornado-like water flow rose rapidly upwards, and then the huge water flow spread out in all directions like a waterfall. I saw that the surrounding terrain, that was originally a desert, instantly turned into a huge lake. The one who took action was none other than the man who was said to have made a contract with the sea, Senjutsu Biruma. Light blue chakra appeared on Kakishi's feet, and a look of solemnity appeared on his face as he stood above the water. Being able to summon such a degree of water flow in such a harsh environment as the desert is enough to prove the excellence of the second generation point. At this time, he was holding a silver longsword. The longsword that was broken due to the battle with Orochimaru has been restored to its original state. A longsword with the characteristics of a decapitating sword only needs to absorb some blood to recover. Looking at the huge lake at his feet, the next moment, a violent force burst out from Kakishi's body, and the blue energy spread like thunder and lightning in all directions. Violent thunder attribute chakra continuously erupted from his body. Boom. The next moment, a thick blue lightning suddenly burst out from Kakishi's body and blasted towards the water under his feet. The next moment, the lightning submerged in the water spread instantly in the water, and tiny blow-ups appeared in the water flow visible to the naked eye. Water conducts electricity. At this moment, Kakashi used this characteristic to change the terrain in an instant, making the water flow that originally suppressed him become his helper. The eyes of the second generation controlled by Orochimaru in front were dull and there was no emotion in them. The next moment, Erde suddenly raised his hands and began to form seals, but at this time, Kakashi frowned. He turned his head and glanced in a direction several kilometers away, where Orochimaru and Jiraiya were. Then he turned his attention to the second generation in front of him. At this time, he discovered one thing, that is, since the distance between the other party and Orochimaru became farther and farther, the second generation's movements became slower. Although it wasn't very obvious, it was still sensed by Kakashi. Water escape. Water breaks the wave. At this moment, the second generation who completed the seal opened his mouth and spit out a stream of water like a laser. Stab it. The water flow visible to the naked eye hit Kakashi in a straight line. This move is an advanced water escape ninjutsu created by the second generation. After countless compressions, the water flow is like a sharp blade. Even steel cannot stop the cutting of the water flow. Kakashi's pupils shrank when he saw this, and without any hesitation, his body with blue light surging around him quickly moved to one side. The second generation also changed the direction of the water flow at the same time, always following Kakashi's side. In response, Kakashi flicked his right hand, and instantly a silver short blade struck in the direction of the second generation. Shuriken. Shadow clone jutsu. Call out, call out, call out. The next moment, 1 turned into 2, and 2 turned into 4. In an instant, hundreds of silver short blades appeared on the field, and these short blades all tore through the air and rushed towards the second generation. Seeing this situation, the second generation stopped the output of water flow, raised his hand again, and started to form seals quickly. Water escape, water formation wall. After just 2 marks, the second generation opened his mouth and spit out a ball of water like a waterfall, and then the water quickly formed a rapidly rotating wall around him. This rapidly rotating wall of water completely enveloped his body, defending the second generation's body without any blind spots. This is the second generation water escape ninjutsu. It's really strong. Kakashi looked at the wall of water that completely enveloped the second generation, and sighed in his heart. The same water formation wall used by ordinary people is just a water wall, but in the second generation, it becomes a ring-shaped water wall that protects the body in all directions. The difference is obvious at a glance. Boom, boom, boom. Dozens of silver short blades bombarded the water wall, causing bursts of water splashes. At the same time, several short blades also turned into a cloud of white smoke. Swish. At this moment, Kakashi's figure suddenly appeared in front of the water wall, and you could see a short silver blade at his feet. Thunder. Slash. A low shout came from Kakashi's mouth, and then he suddenly swung his knife forward. Crack. Crack. In an instant, the sound of thunder and lightning exploded, and dense blue lightning was seen condensing on the long knife, like thunder and lightning dancing, looking terrifying. At this moment, Kakashi seemed to be a man and a sword, and a sharp aura burst out from his body. A sword light formed entirely of blue lightning flashed out from the long sword. The lightning blade tore through the air, and in the blink of an eye it landed on the ring-shaped water wall ahead. Wow. Almost instantly, the water wall shattered, revealing the figure of the second generation inside. Stab it. The thunder and lightning sword light that shattered the water wall continued to rush towards the second generation in front without losing its momentum. Sensing the danger, the second generation kicked his feet to the ground and retreated violently backwards. Noisy. But at this moment, there was a roar of thunder and lightning, and a blue spear was seen piercing the second generation's chest. The spear was completely composed of violent thunder and lightning, and it was the Chidori sharp spear. Swish. Suddenly, the figure of the second generation, who was hit by the lightning spear, flashed and then disappeared from Kakashi's sight. Kakashi smiled helplessly at this. He was too familiar with this move. It was the Flying Thunder God's technique. His left hand trembled slightly, and the lightning spear turned into a burst of blue light and disappeared. And then Kakashi turned around and looked to the side. I saw a figure walking on the water there. It was a second generation. Looking at the second generation in front of him, a sharp light flashed from Kakashi's eyes. Now he has a rough understanding of the opponent's strength. Although it is impossible to judge how much strength the second generation has in life, it is certain that the opponent has weaker than him now. Although the second generation is very good at water escape, for Kakashi, a simple water escape attack cannot cause any substantial damage to him. He is good at using thunder release, and is very fast. Coupled with the assistance of the Flying Thunder God technique, the second generation Mizukage in this state cannot do anything to him. Swish. Blue light surged from Kakishi's body, and his figure holding a silver sword flashed rapidly. In just an instant, he was in front of the second generation point guy. In an instant, a lightning blade ripped through the air and struck out. At this time, you can see that there are some things flying like confetti on the chest of the second generation that was just penetrated, and then his chest returned to its original state. The reincarnated body of the dirty land itself has endless chakra and immortality. Currently, apart from sealing it, the only way left is for the user to actively release this ninjutsu. Boom. A group of water quickly jumped up to block the second generation, but the next moment, the water flow was directly shattered by the light of the thunder and lightning sword. Chapter 328 Thunder Escape. Killin. Swish. A figure in blue armor flashed past and appeared behind Kakashi in an instant. It could be seen that the blue figure was holding a sharp sword in his hand. The long sword tore through the air and stabbed directly at Kakashi. This is the Flying Thunder God / recorded in the sealed book. Just when the sword was about to pierce Kakishi's body, his figure flickered and then disappeared. The next moment, his figure also arrived behind the second generation. In almost the same movement, the long knife cut through the air and struck directly towards the second generation. Although the second generation was not as strong as himself now, Kakashi could not defeat him in a short time, so he changed his mind and no longer thought about how to defeat the opponent, but turned around and started learning from the second generation. The opponent's powerful water release ninjutsu and the use of the Flying Thunder God technique are both worth learning for him. Especially the Flying Thunder God technique. Although Kakashi barely mastered it, even now, he is still stuck in the first stage. When fighting the enemy, in most cases he treats it as a kind of power used for escape ninjutsu. It is rarely used offensively. But at this time, in the second generation, he gradually learned some new things, like the Flying Thunder God / just now. Flying Thunder God / is a ninjutsu developed by the second generation on the basis of Flying Thunder God Jutsu. It first uses the time and space ninjutsu to move to the enemy's blind spot where the Flying Thunder God Warlock is attached, and then attacks at lightning speed. The opponent's vital points if used properly. This move can end the battle early. After several experiments, Kakashi barely mastered this technique. Buff. Perhaps because the body of the Tensei was too slow, the second generation could not dodge Kakishi's move. The silver long knife struck his shoulder and cut off his entire left arm in an instant. Swish. Once again, the second generation who was attacked used the Flying Thunder God to escape. Kakashi looked up and saw the opponent's figure appearing on a sand dune 500 meters away from him. Sure enough, it's another 500 meters. Kakashi secretly thought in his heart. Through many observations, he found that every time the second generation used the Flying Thunder God technique, he would never escape more than 500 meters away from him. A flash of light flashed from Kakishi's eyes, in this case. Then try this move. In fact, the reason why the second generation did this was because of the order given to him by Orochimaru. With Orochimaru's current strength, it was not easy to suppress him, and the first generation at the same time. He did not dare to let him completely let go of his strength. Just like the second generation in front of Kakashi, he looks like a slightly stronger puppet at this time. His movements are slow and there is no flexibility at all. This is mainly because Orochimaru focused most of his energy on the first generation to deal with Naraku, so the performance of the second generation seems to be somewhat unsatisfactory. But it was precisely this that gave Kakashi the opportunity. Kakashi raised his hands and began to form seals quickly. The fire escapes. The powerful fire is extinguished. Kakashi opened his mouth and spit out a ball of hot red flames. The flames were like a wall of fire, directly covering a dozen meters in front of him. And this was not over. After Kakashi quickly formed the seal again, wind release, a big breakthrough. Wind escape, a big breakthrough. A violent gust of wind spurted out from his mouth, and instantly the gust of wind hit the wall of fire. The wind assisted the fire, and in an instant, the red flames became more intense. The firewall, that was originally more than 10 meters wide, spread to dozens of meters in an instant. The sky is full of fire. The temperature was originally relatively high in the environment, filled with yellow sand. But now with the smoke of the flames, the temperature began to rise rapidly. The scorching temperature burned the yellow sand on the ground red, and the flames in the sky spread forward. Seeing this, the second generation in front quickly formed seals with his hands, and was about to use water escape ninjutsu to extinguish the flames. However, the next moment, a blue light flashed in front of his eyes, and the silver long knife struck directly at the second generation's neck. Sensing the danger, the second generation instinctively retreated and stopped making seals on his hands. Kakashi then launched a non-stop attack on the second generation. Although he did not seriously injure the opponent, he also left several wounds on his body, but those wounds were quickly covered with scraps of paper. At this time, as the flames continued to burn, the temperature rose rapidly, and 2 cumulonimbus clouds appeared in the sky above this space point. In response, Kakashi paused, and a touch of excitement appeared in his eyes. This was the moment he had been waiting for. Suddenly, Kakashi stopped his attack on the second generation, and his figure flashed under the cumulonimbus. The next moment, rich thunder attribute energy gathered in his right hand. In an instant, the sound of 1,000 birds singing together sounded, and it was none other than the 1,000 birds as a ninjutsu that Kakashi created when he was 12 years old. The Chidori means a lot to him. Many of the ninjutsu he uses today are evolved from the Chidori point. Today, he was going to use Chidori to perform another ninjutsu point. Although the second generation not far away did not understand Kakashi's movements, he was controlled by Orochimaru, and would not think about it. His body flashed and reappeared 500 meters away from Kakashi. At the same time, his hands lift up to start forming seals quickly. On the other side, the harsh chirping of the Chidori kept ringing in this area, and at the same time, a terrifying power emanated from his body. Kakashi looked up at the sky. The forehead protector of his left eye had been lifted up, revealing the Scarlet 3 Magatama Sharingan inside. At this time, he seemed to be looking for something. Water escape, water dragon bullet. At this moment, the second generation who had completed the seal let out a low drink, and then a blue water dragon of tens of feet rose into the sky and rushed towards Kakashi. But at this moment, Kakashi's pupils shrank, and then he waved his right arm violently. Roar, roar. Suddenly several deafening roars sounded. Naraku, who was fighting the first generation in the distance, was also attracted by the movement here. With Kaguya's inner eye opened, he instantly sensed that this was Kakashi's masterpiece. It's okay, brother K. He sighed in his heart, and then his chakra exploded, and he fought with the first generation again. On the field, blue thunder flashed out from the cumulus clouds. The next moment, Kakashi waved his arm, and in an instant, a blue thunderbolt as thick as a bucket struck down hard. Boom. In an instant, the thick thunder and lightning collided with the huge water dragon. The latter was directly defeated by the lightning at the moment of collision, and turned into a ball of water and downward fells. But that's not the end of it. In the air, an extremely violent aura suddenly rose, and then a huge alien beast emerged from the cumulus clouds. Lion head, antlers, tiger eyes, dragon scales, oxtail. This is a unicorn completely transformed from thunder and lightning. Chapter 329, Sealing Talisman, Solving the Second Generation. Fortunately it worked. Kakashi looked up at the huge figure above his head and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He developed the Kirin ninjutsu under the guidance of Naraku. He had only done a simple experiment before, and had never used it in actual combat, so this time it was also a bold attempt for Kakashi. On the field, Kakashi's hand flashed with lightning, and his right hand waved slightly, pointing directly at the second generation in front. The next moment, the giant beast transformed into blue thunder roared out, and in an instant, several thick thunder and lightning fell. The second generation saw this and moved quickly, but no matter how fast he was, he couldn't be faster than the lightning. That was only a thousandth of a second. In addition, the other party always maintained a distance of 500 meters from Kakashi, so it was even more inevitable. Boom, boom, boom. As thunder fell one after another, the second generation, who was unable to dodge, was finally struck by lightning. In just a moment, his body reincarnated from the dirty soil directly became broken into pieces, and materials like scraps of paper appeared around him again. But this was not the end. After the lightning locked the second generation's position, Kakashi stretched out his right hand, and the Kirin, which exuded terrifying power in the air, moved instantly. Boom. As Kirin bombarded Erde's incomplete body heavily, a loud earthquake resounded on the field. What is this level of ninjutsu? Not far away, Orochimaru, who was dragged by Jiraiya and unable to escape, noticed something abnormal. At this moment, he felt that the connection between himself and the second generation was cut off. In an instant, his expression suddenly changed. The reason why Orochimaru chose to succeed the fifth Kazekage, even though he knew that Konohagakure was preparing to launch a war against Sand Hidden Village, was partly because of his own soaring strength, and partly because of the art of reincarnation. He believed that with the first and second generation, as well as the ancestors of other ninja villages, these people could still fight against Konoha, but now this situation was beyond his expectation. In his heart, he thought that with the strength of the first generation, the god of ninja, he would sweep Naraku and the others away, but he did not expect that the first generation would be entangled by Naraku alone. Kakashi here is staring straight ahead. If you look carefully, you will find that he is holding something very similar to a charm in his hand. This is a special sealing talisman developed by Naraku after he sealed Danzo. It can temporarily seal the body of a person reincarnated from the dirty land. In front of Kakashi, there is a large piece of material like confetti. As the confetti continues to increase, it slowly forms a human shape, which is the second generation. Just when his body was about to fully recover, the second generation slowly opened his eyes. At this moment, his eyes were a little different from before. Although they still looked devoid of any emotion, they were a little more alive. At this moment, his eyes were a little different from before. This time, the second generation was temporarily out of Orochimaru's control. When the thunder release Kirin just shattered his body, it also shattered the kunai engraved with a special wall lock that Orochimaru had implanted in his body. Orochimaru used that to manipulate him. Looking at Kakashi in front of him, the second generation felt a flash of relief in his heart. Through the battle just now, he had recognized Kakashi's identity as a Konoha ninja. The opponent even mastered his own flying thunder god technique, and the second generation knew that there was a successor to Konoha village. Monkey, you did a good job. The second generation secretly thought to himself, and then he was about to ask Kakashi something in front of him. Hey, it's Konoha now. Swish. But at this moment, Kakashi's figure flashed suddenly, and when he appeared, he was already in front of him, and the sealing talisman held in his hand was directly attached to his forehead. The second generation lost consciousness instantly, before he finished speaking. You can see wisps of golden energy being stimulated from the sealing talisman, and soon these energies filled the second generation's body, temporarily sealing it. The sealing talisman is a one-time thing, and has a certain timeliness. Looking at the sealed second generation in front of him, Kakashi tried to seal it into the scroll, but failed. Then Kakashi turned his head and glanced at Nano, who was fighting fiercely with the first generation, and frowned slightly. He wanted Naraku to come over and seal the second generation, but it was obvious that it would be difficult for Naraku to escape for a while. After a slight hesitation, Kakashi was ready to take a long trip. Putting his hand on the second generation's shoulder, Kakashi closed his eyes and sensed for a while, found it. The next moment, the figures of Kakashi and Erde became illusory at the same time, and then disappeared. Boom. Just as they left, a black bone python suddenly emerged from the ground, and appeared where Kakashi had just been standing. You've already left here. The flying thunder god jutsu is really a troublesome time and space ninjutsu. Konoha village, the home of the Senju clan. Suddenly, Kushina, who was eating with Naruto and Shiro, seemed to sense something. Her face instantly became tense. Kaguya's heart eyes opened instantly, and she had a panoramic view of all the chakra fluctuations inside and outside the entire clan. Kakashi? Kushina frowned slightly. In her perception, in addition to the original person, there were two more auras. One of them was very familiar to her, and it was Kakashi's. Kakashi should be from Tsunagakure village at this time, so why did he appear here? Kushina was a little confused, but she didn't think much about it. She still had great faith in her own perception ability. After saying hello to Naruto and Shiro, she got up and walked out of the house, heading towards Naraku's room in the clan. Sure enough, it was placed here. Kakashi. placed the kunai engraved with the flying thunder god warlock hanging on the wall. With a helpless smile on his lips squeak, "Kakashi, what's wrong with you?" At this moment, Kushina opened the door to the room and walked in, but the next moment she was attracted by the figure standing next to Kakashi. Second Hokage-sama. Although Kushina, who was taken to Konoha and grew up since she was a child, has never seen the second generation in person, she is no stranger to the second generation. You must know that her childhood wish was to become Hokage. Whether they were the first generation, the second generation, or the previous third generation, they were all Kushina's idols, teachers, wife. Kakashi bowed slightly to Kushina, and then he briefly informed Kushina of the situation, before returning to Sunagakure village again. Kushina in the room looked at the second generation who was restrained by the sealing talisman in front of her. After a slight hesitation, she raised her hands and began to form seals quickly. Soon, after a wave of chakra, several golden chains burst out from Kushina's body. King Kong Seal. Chapter 330 Orochimaru's Thoughts. In the land of the Thousand Hands clan, Kushina looked at the man in front of her who was bound by several golden chains with complicated eyes. The Vajra Seal is a ninjutsu she developed, based on the Vajra Seal. Slightly different from the Vajra Seal, the chains of the Vajra Seal can be separated, and do not have to be connected to the user's body point, as long as the summon chain is not too far away from the main body and the main body's chakra is not exhausted. The chain will always exist. Compared with ordinary sealing techniques, the sealing ability of chains is stronger and more stable. The country of wind, Sand Hidden Village, led by Chiyo. Hundreds of ninjas gathered at the entrance of Sunagakure village. They are all the elites of Sunagakure village, and each one has the strength of a Jonin point. However, they were all silent at this time, especially Chiyo, who felt bursts of sadness in her heart. At this time, it can be seen that on both sides of the village entrance, countless sand walls have collapsed, and Sand Hidden Village is directly exposed to the yellow sand in the sky. Although Naraku and the others did not deliberately attack those buildings when they took action, on the contrary, the distance between them and Sand Hidden Village was even further and further away. However, because the battle between the two sides was too fierce, just the aftermath of the battle destroyed those sand walls. Shattered. No one in the entire Sunagakure village could participate in a battle of this level. At this time, they were thinking, even if the fourth Kazekage was still alive, could he really lead Sunagakure village to withstand the offensive of Konoha village? Obviously, the answer is no. On the field, just after Kakashi defeated the second generation, Naraku also began to launch a strong counter-attack against the first generation. Boom. A powerful impact exploded in the air. The air visible to the naked eye fluctuated like a tide, and the ground even trembled slightly. At this time, you can see that two huge figures collided together. They looked similar, as if they were a pair of twins. Naraku and Shoda each stood on the shoulders of a giant shadow point from a distance. The huge figure looks like a wooden figure made entirely of dark blue wood. It's the wood escape, the art of wooden man. Like Kakashi, Naraku also wanted to see the powerful wooden ninjutsu of the first generation. So in this battle, he basically used wooden ninjutsu to fight against the first generation. Two huge wooden figures that were 20 meters high kept colliding with each other, and deafening collision sounds were heard. Wood release. Bokyo no Jutsu is definitely a very powerful high-level wood release ninjutsu. You must know that in the original work, the first generation was able to fight Madara's complete Susanoo with this ninjutsu. He can even block the tailed beast Jade released by the Kyuubi with his hands. However, in Naraku's hands, the power of the wooden jutsu was never that powerful. However, as he fought with the first generation, he gradually discovered some skills, and gradually he became more and more proficient in controlling the wooden ninjutsu. Just like now, both of them use the wooden man's technique at the same time, and Naraku is no longer behind. Although the current first generation does not possess the complete strength that he had during his lifetime, Naraku did not use all his strength. He is different from the first generation. Although the latter is very powerful, he only mastered wood escape ninjutsu and senjutsu, but Naraku also has the Sharingan. Even now, he is not afraid of the first generation in his heyday. Even if he loses, he can remain undefeated with Shunkan. Boom, boom, boom. A series of sonic booms sounded, and the two wooden figures started a fierce battle. You punched me, and I punched each other. The wooden dragon on the back was also not idle, entangled with each other. For a moment, dark green sawdust flew around point below. Orochimaru's face became more and more ugly at this time, because there was another figure in front of him at this time, and it was Kakashi, who returned from Konoha village. He needs to be distracted to control the first generation, so he cannot fully display his strength. He can still cope with Jiraiya, who is not as strong as him, but if you add Kakashi, who is on par with him in strength point, he will become very passive. In this case, it seems that this is the only way to do it. As Orochimaru quickly retreated, he formed a mark with one hand. At the same time, the first generation standing on Bakuto's shoulders suddenly froze, and then a stronger aura was released from him. Then he saw his hands clasped together, and black lines instantly appeared on his face. Under the control of Orochimaru, the first generation turned on the Sage mode. Almost instantly, the amount of chakra in his body surged, and the mostly broken wooden man under his feet also began to recover quickly. Point boom, the complete wooden man appeared again, and a powerful force burst out from his body. You can even use the Sage mode. Naoluo secretly thought in his heart, and then without any hesitation, his eyes narrowed slightly. The next moment, an equally powerful aura emanated from his body, and red lines appeared on his face. Naraku also turned on the immortal mode. Then under his control, the two wooden figures fought against each other again. You even control the magic of Shigu Forest. Orochimaru was deeply surprised. Naraku gave him too many surprises at this time. Now with the current body of the first generation, it is already the limit to be able to explode such strength. If it continues, there is a high possibility that the first generation will lose control, and then his losses will be even greater. Although the second generation is now sealed, Orochimaru does not attach too much importance to him. After all, compared with the first generation, the second generation's strength is still far behind. There are only a few strong men of this level in the first generation in the entire ninja world. Orochimaru turned his head and glanced at the Tsunagakure village behind him, and he began to think about retreating. Although he really wanted to control Sand Hidden Village, the best he could do was protect Sand Hidden Village. It was almost impossible for him to fight tooth and nail. Although he still holds another powerful being in his hands, Orochimaru does not dare to release him easily now. If he is backlashed, the gain will outweigh the loss. Swish. At this moment, a blue figure flashed past quickly, and a long knife flashing with blue electric light appeared in his sight. It was Kakashi who took action. In response, Orochimaru's chakra surged, and several bone blades sprang out from various parts of his body, and then he fought with Kakashi. Jiraiya on the other side stopped, and he looked at Chiyo and his group in Tsunagakure village. A strong murderous aura was released from Jiraiya's body. Jiraiya knew that the war waged by Konoha village against Tsunagakure village would cause many casualties, but in order to unify the ninja world and make the ninja world truly peaceful, some casualties must be done. No destruction, no establishment, a new development in the ninja world. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 331. Let's start with a Susanoo wooden figure outside Sand Hidden Village. It's almost time to finish. Standing on the wooden figure, Naraku secretly thought to himself that through fighting with the first generation at this time, he could roughly deduce what level of strength he had during his lifetime. Genin, Chunin, Special Jounin, Jounin, Elite Jounin, and Shadow Level. These are the divisions of ninja strength in the ninja world. But in fact, this division is not clear enough. Just like the first generation in front of us, his strength has obviously exceeded the shadow level by far. Not only the first generation, Naraku himself, Kakashi, and Orochimaru, the strength of the three of them has also exceeded the cage level. Although there is no clear title, Naraku defines their current status Super Shadow Level. In the realm of Super Shadow Level, the first generation has reached its peak, and the next step up is the 6th level. And Naraku felt that he should be in the middle stage of Super Shadow, and Kakashi and Orochimaru were not much different, slightly worse than himself, in the early stage of Super Shadow. Of course, this is just Naraku's own division, and there are still some differences in the end. It's time for you to return to the Pure Land. Looking at the first generation with black lines on his face in front of him, Naraku's expression condensed, and then a powerful pupil power burst out from his eyes in an instant. A dazzling golden light appeared. The next moment, as the pupil power continued to pour out, the golden light became more and more intense, and then the golden light turned into streams of rich golden energy. As the golden energy increased, it quickly spread to the wooden man. After a moment, the entire wooden man shone with golden light, looking like he was wearing a suit of golden armor before the Sasanata Buddha. Naraku came first with a Sasanata wooden figure. Boom. With Sasana's blessing, Bakuto's attack power and defense ability increased linearly. He suddenly punched out, the air shook instantly, and a deafening sonic boom sounded. Boom. The next moment, this terrifying punch landed directly on the wooden man at the feet of the first generation. In an instant, one of its arms was directly shattered and turned into countless sawdust flying around. Then Naraku took advantage of the victory and pursued it. Before the first generation could react, the wooden dragon from behind the wooden man suddenly sprang out. The wooden dragon covered with golden energy was like a real golden dragon, looking sacred and powerful. The golden wooden dragon was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it had wrapped itself around the neck of the wooden man opposite. The next moment, it exerted force suddenly. In an instant, the huge head of the wooden man instantly disintegrated like a landslide and turned into a pile of rubbish. Sawdust fell toward the ground. At this time, the first generation put his hands together and was about to make a move. Swish. Suddenly, a figure flashed past and came behind him. It was Naraku. It can be seen that at this time, the palm of his right hand is facing outward, and a rapidly rotating shuriken is in his palm, which is the spiral shuriken. Kai. Invisible wind blades cut through the air, blowing away the surrounding air. Stab it. The next moment, Naraku's body moved. His waist suddenly exerted force, and he threw the shuriken towards the first generation. Because the distance between the two was so close, even if the first generation noticed it, it would be difficult for him to react at this time. This is also the reason why Naraku only threw the shuriken when he came behind the first generation. Stab it. The spiral shuriken fell directly on the first generation, and the huge impact instantly knocked it off Bakuto's shoulders, and the spinning shuriken was also tearing apart his body. You can see wisps of confetti-like material falling from his body. Wow. Naraku did not stop. 8 thick golden chains stretched out from his back at the same time, circling each other and rushing towards the first generation in front. He did not think that he could defeat the first generation with the spiral shuriken alone. The fact was just as he expected. The first generation used his strong body to withstand the impact of the Rasen shuriken from the front. Only the back of his body was broken a little, and he was still recovering quickly. Naraku felt that if it were the original Rasen shuriken in its heyday, it wouldn't even be able to hurt the opponent. Call out. The 8 thick chains moved quickly, and soon they rushed in front of the first generation. The chains were like spears, and they stabbed towards him fiercely. But the next moment, a row of wooden stakes quickly rose from the ground, surrounding the first generation's body and protecting it. Boom. The chains hit it and made a series of shaking sounds. Crack. At this moment, a burst of thunder and lightning exploded, and Naraku's hand flashed with lightning, and a thunder spear composed of blue thunder appeared in his hand. Boom. The next moment, Naraku flicked his right hand and threw it forward. In an instant, the lightning spear tore through the air and landed directly on the row of wooden arches. Thunder and lightning have the characteristic of penetrating. Almost at the moment of contact, the spear smashed into pieces and then continued to rush forward with unabated strength. At this time, Chiyo's legs were slightly bent, and then he exerted force suddenly, preparing to jump up. Shunkan. The pupil power of his left eye exploded, and Naraku's figure disappeared instantly. Swish. The next moment, a figure appeared above him. It was Naraku. Chakra quickly surged out of Naraku's right arm, and then he made a fist with his right hand, turned in the air, and struck the first generation directly on the head with an explosive punch. Boom. There was a loud noise, visible to the naked eye, where Naraku's fist collided, and the air fluctuated like a tide. Boom. The ground collapsed, and the first generation's body sank down. Stab it. At this time, the thunder spear rushed over and landed on the first generation's chest. In an instant, blue arcs covered his body. The strong sense of paralysis made the movements of the first generation a little slower. Boom. Boom. At this moment, two violent noises suddenly sounded, and then a huge black figure could be seen falling to the ground. It was the wooden figure summoned by the first generation point after Susanna joined. The two wooden figures quickly decided the winner. Call out, call out, call out. Several sounds broke through the air, and 8 golden chains were quickly wrapped around the first generation. Naraku planned to take advantage of this opportunity to directly control the opponent point at the same time. Naraku opened his 5 fingers, turned his fist into a palm, and slapped the first generation. You can see a black warlock in his palm. With this palm strike, Naraku is fully confident that he can control the first generation. But at this moment, Naraku seemed to sense something and turned around suddenly. The next moment, a sharp bone blade rubbed against his body, and then a figure appeared in front of him. A pair of golden eyeshadow appeared on the pale pupils, and a pair of antlers-like things grew out of his head. The person who came was none other than Orochimaru in Sage Mode. Chapter 332, Orochimaru's Defeat, Day's Expectations. The Immortal Mode of Raichi Cave. Looking at Orochimaru, who was the first to have 2 horns in front of him, Naraku thought to himself. He was not surprised that Orochimaru could now master the celestial arts of Raichi Cave Point in the original work, since Kabuto can control this kind of magic with Kimimara's talent. It is natural not to mention it. You must know that Kimimaro can kill the 4th Kazekage in the original work. There is no doubt about his strength and talent with a complete corpse bone vein. Because of Orochimaru's sudden intervention, Naraku's plan to seal the first generation was disrupted. Orochimaru then took control of the first generation and quickly distanced himself from him. Swish. At this moment, a blue light flashed beside Naraku. It was Kakashi. Looking at Orochimaru on the opposite side, Naraku knew that the battle was coming to an end, and there was no doubt that they had one point. He could feel that Orochimaru, who was standing on the opposite side, was already preparing to retreat. Swish. At this moment, a tall figure flashed past and stood in front of Naraku. Jiraiya looked at Orochimaru opposite him with complicated eyes, and after hesitating for a long time, he slowly spoke. Stop it, Orochimaru. You should know what we want to do. Unify the ninja world, completely end the war, and let everyone achieve permanent peace. As he spoke, Jiraiya paused slightly, and then continued. Peace, isn't it what we were pursuing in the past? After hearing these words from Jiraiya, Orochimaru's eyes trembled slightly, but they soon returned to normal. Haha, the ambition of Konoha village is really big. You actually want to rule the entire ninja world. Orochimaru opened his mouth with a sneer, with cold eyes and a disdainful tone. His actions seemed to tell Jiraiya that what you said has nothing to do with me. Point facing Orochimaru like this, Jiraiya shook his head helplessly. He also knew that his former best friend and companion had already drifted away from them. But even if he can't be a companion, Jiraiya doesn't want to be on the opposite side, and today's situation is not what Jiraiya wants to see. Oh, indeed, very Jiraiya. Naraku looked up at the tall figure in front of him and couldn't help but secretly thought to himself. Just like Orochimaru said, Jiraiya may never understand him, but the opposite is also true. How could Orochimaru ever think about it from Jiraiya's perspective? Uncle, Master, now that Konoha wants to occupy Tsunagakure village, do you still have any objections? Naraku, who understood that the two of they would have nothing to talk about if they continued, took a step forward, and his scarlet eyes fell directly on Orochimaru, his eyes cold and exuding a sharp edge. Naraku is not as indecisive as Jiraiya. He has always acted vigorously and resolutely. In the past, it was okay to be controlled by Danzo and the 3rd generation because of his lack of strength. But now that he has such strength, if someone stands in front of him, there is nothing to say. Of course, if the two sides really started a life and death battle, Naraku would save Orochimaru's life for the sake of Jiraiya and Tsunade if possible, but he felt that it was not necessary. You must know that Orochimaru is known as the most difficult person to kill among Hokage. Even Naraku is not sure that he can completely kill him. You must know that even Itachi with the 10-fist sword cannot completely kill Orochimaru. which is enough to prove how difficult Orochimaru is to kill. But even if he can't kill him completely, there is still no problem in defeating him. Naraku has full confidence, even if he has become stronger now. Faced with Naraku's threatening words, Orochimaru was not angry. He just sneered and turned his attention to Naraku. Although he still has some trump cards that he hasn't used yet, if it's just to preserve Tsunagaku's talents, it's pretty good that he's done this far. With the powerful Naraku in front of him and Kakashi beside him, Orochimaru felt that if these two people joined forces, it would not be difficult to sweep the entire ninja world. Although he now controls the corpse veins and white eyes, he has not fully developed them, and there is still a lot of room for improvement. After a brief thought, Orochimaru quickly made a choice. We will definitely meet again. Orochimaru said these words to Naraku and left here with the first generation. I hope you won't disappoint me, Ju. Looking at the other person's leaving figure, Naraku suddenly felt his heart shrink, and a strong uneasiness fell in his heart, but this uneasiness came and went away just as quickly. In just a moment, he returned to normal again. Naraku frowned slightly at this. He closed his eyes and examined his body carefully. Normally, a super shadow level powerhouse like him has a very special sense, or it can be called a sixth sense. Naraku didn't think it was just an illusion. There must be a reason for everything. Soon, Naraku slowly opened his eyes. He had just used Kaguya's heart eye to carefully check his body. Except for some chakra consumption, there was almost nothing abnormal. Shaking his head, Naraku, who couldn't find the answer for the time being, could only give up. At the same time, after confirming Orochimaru's defeat and leaving here, everyone in Tsunagaku, led by Chiyo, died. With as hen faces, they stood quietly at the entrance of the village, and the leader, Chiyo, was even trembling. The fifth Kazekage, did you defect from the village? Among the crowd, some people who didn't know Orochimaru's true identity looked in disbelief. Just yesterday, many of them had just established some trust in Orochimaru. They believed that the 5th Kazekage could lead Tsunagaku village out of crisis. But today, reality gave them a blow. Now their 5th Kazekage was afraid of the enemy's power, so he abandoned Tsunagaku village and fled. For a time, the faith these people had just established collapsed, and a sense of twilight surrounded the entire Tsunagaku village. Chiyo standing in front could not stop trembling, but soon a touch of determination appeared on her face full of grooves. The scene before her was something she had expected. In fact, when she chose Orochimaru to succeed the Kazekage, she had already thought of the situation in front of her. It wasn't like she didn't know what kind of person Orochimaru was. He was just a complete lunatic. How could such a person protect Tsunagaku village? Even if he had the intention, he would be powerless against the powerful Konoha. The reality was not much different from Chiyo's expectation. Orochimaru, who was the 5th Kazekage, was forced to leave. Everyone in Tsunagaku village suffered a major blow, and the military morale was unstable, so it was easily occupied by Konoha village. Chapter 333 The Infamy That Can Never Be Erased. Sand Hidden Village. Standing at the entrance of the village, Chiyo's eyes were complicated, with a hint of unwillingness, but also a hint of relief inside. As Chiyo, who has lived in Tsunagaku village all his life, his feelings for Tsunagaku village are extremely deep. During World War II, World War III, and after Asa's death, he came back to stabilize the overall situation. Everything she did was for Sand Hidden Village, for this hometown she loved. She has given too much to Tsunagaku village. Her son and daughter-in-law also died in the war to protect Sand Hidden Village, and this also led to the disappearance of her grandson. For Chiyo at this time, she has contributed everything to Tsunagaku village, and now she has reached this point and there is nothing she can do. Suddenly, she turned her head and glanced at the Tsunagaku people behind her, with a hint of determination in her eyes. "Let me be the sinner," Chiyo murmured in his mouth, then quickly turned around and rushed forward. "Elder Chiyo, Elder Chiyo." For a moment, everyone in Tsunagaku changed their expressions when they saw this scene. The confidence they had lost due to the defection of the 5th Kazekage was also rekindled at this moment because of Chiyo. "Elder Chiyo cannot be allowed to die alone." Suddenly, someone yelled, and his figure flashed and chased after Chiyo's back. Yes, together with Elder Kayende, Kill those who want to invade our home. In the crowd, there were several figures shouting excitedly. They are all young ninjas. They may not be strong, but compared with those older ninjas, they have irreplaceable vitality. Swish. Don't move. No one can leave the village without my order. Just when someone was about to rush out of the village in trance, an old figure turned his back to everyone and blocked the front of the village in trance. It was Ibizo. Elder. The man who was stopped looked puzzled. Elder Kayanayo is in danger. We have to help him. He opened his mouth to say something, only to see Ibizo wave his hand at him, and out of respect for the elder, he stepped back. No one noticed that Ibizo's eyes were moist at this time, and his face full of grooves was covered with tears. He was the only person present who knew Chiyo's true thoughts. Sister, you are the real shadow of Sunagakure village. Ahead, Chiyo had already arrived in front of Naraku and the others. Facing the arrival of Chiyo, neither Naraku nor Kakashi cared at all. For the two of them, no one in the entire Sunagakure village could beat them. Compared to the two of them who didn't care, Jiraiya showed a little more importance. In his impression, Chiyo was still a strong female ninja who was good at using poison point in the Third Ninja World War. During the duel between Konoha village and Sunagakure village, Chiyo poisoned a large number of Konoha ninjas to lose their combat effectiveness. If Tsunade hadn't turned the tide later, that battle would not have happened. It will be difficult for Yi to win. So when Chiyo quickly approached here, Jiraiya still became vigilant, but the next moment, a scene that surprised him appeared. Thump. Chiyo stood directly opposite him, and then knelt down directly. Jiraiya was stunned for a moment, and Kakashi also frowned slightly, unable to understand Chiyo's current behavior. Only Naraku's eyes flashed with light. Grandma Chiyo, you are truly a hero among women. At this time, Naraku had realized what Chiyo wanted to do, and the first words she spoke confirmed Naraku's suspicion. On behalf of Sunagakure village, I surrender unconditionally to Konoha village. From then on, the country of wind is a satellite of the country of fire. Chiyo said slowly. Jiraiya's expression changed instantly when he heard this. She was a strong woman who once dominated the ninja world, a poison master in the ninja world, and Granny Chiyo who could even fight against the demigods and Shawai Hanzo. At this moment, he actually said the word surrender and even knelt in front of him. Jiraiya was immediately surprised. Not only was he surprised, but everyone in Sunagakure was most shocked. What's going on, Elder Chiyo? What's wrong with her? The man who had just opened his mouth to follow Chiyo had a look of disbelief on his face. He even reached out and rubbed his eyes, as if the scene in front of him was just an illusion. But this is his fantasy after all. There were others who were as shocked as him. All the people in Sunagakure village present, except Ibizo, were all shocked by this scene. But after the shock, there was a strong disappointment. First, the newly appointed 5th Kazekage was defeated by the enemy and chose to abandon the village and escape. But now their elder, Chiyo, who has worked hard for Sunagakure village all his life, is kneeling in front of the enemy, in front of the invaders who want to occupy their Sunagakure village. For a moment, everyone felt a strong sense of humiliation. They wanted to scold the 5th Kazekage and Chiyo, call them traitors, scum, and villains. But they couldn't think about it. If it was just the 5th Kazekage who had just taken office, they could say slanderous words without hesitation. But now that the target has been changed to Chiyo, they can't say it out. Chiyo's contribution to Sunagakure village is obvious to all. She has saved Sunagakure village many times. Now she is supposed to be retiring and takes charge of the overall situation. This is also for Sunagakure village. Is it Chiyo's fault? It's not that I'm not weird, it's that I'm not qualified. Nowadays, everyone in Sunagakure village counts one by one, and no one has contributed more to Sunagakure village than Chiyo. So they didn't blame Chiyo for what she was doing now, but they just felt very aggrieved and helpless. Everyone knows that Chiyo has the deepest feelings for Sunagakure village. Even if there is a little hope, the other party will not do such a thing. But there is no hope at all. Today's Sunagakure village is too weak. Although there are thousands of ninjas in the village now, their confidence was shattered. After witnessing the godlike battle. They knew that in the face of the attack of Konoha village, Sunagakure village had no ability to resist, and would only collapse like ashes. They even realized why Chiyo did what he did. Yes, it was to protect Sunagakure Village Point, in order to reduce casualties in Sand Hidden Village Point. After thinking of this, everyone in Sunagakure Village fell silent, except for a few young ninjas who still looked angry. Most people bowed their heads deeply. They felt extremely guilty, and they knew very well what Chiyo's actions would bring to Sunagakure Village, and what they would bring to herself. Infamy that can never be erased. Chapter 334, Terumi Medi and Kakishi's ambiguous relationship. Looking at Chiyo kneeling on the ground in front of him, Jiraiya looked heavy. At this time, he already understood what the other person meant. The ninja world will definitely usher in a new peace. After saying this, Jiraiya walked around the other party and walked straight towards the entrance of Sunagakure Village, while Naraku and Kakashi followed behind him. Everyone in Sunagakure faced the three people who arrived and made way for them in silence. Chiyo, who was behind him, slowly stood up and turned towards Sunagakure Village with complicated eyes. Although it is shameful to surrender without fighting, it can reduce casualties to the greatest extent. From the moment Jiraiya and Naraku entered Sunagakure Village safely, it meant that Sunagakure Village surrendered to Konoha. However, Naraku still noticed that the eyes of some people in Sand Hidden Village were still full of murderous intent when looking at them. He knew that, even if Sand Hidden Village surrendered voluntarily, some blood would still have to be shed. In Konoha Village, Hokage's office, surrendered voluntarily. After listening to Kakishi's report in front of her, Tsunade murmured, and the worry in her eyes was much less visible to the naked eye. However, she did not relax her vigilance. She knew very well that Sunagakure Village was only forced to succumb to Konoha under pressure. If one day they have the ability to resist, they will definitely retaliate against Konoha Village as soon as possible. And not only Sunagakure Village, but also other ninja villages. Conquering Sunagakure Village is just the first step for Konoha Village to unify the ninja world. Notify Dingzo and ask him to lead 2000 ninjas to Sunagakure Village. Tsunade opened her mouth and quickly issued orders one after another. She had already had an idea for Sunagakure Village long ago. By the way, inform Tenzo and ask him to rush to Sunagakure Village too, until. Finally, Tsunade added one last sentence. Soon, under Tsunade's order, countless people in Konoha Village took action again. Next, it's your turn. Tsunade looked down at the map on her desk, her eyes resting on two of the places marked with red pens. There are clearly the Kingdom of Earth and the Kingdom of Thunder. One day later, the border of Karigakure Village. Sunagakure's surrender has indeed been successful. A woman with long brown hair and fair face looked at the scroll in her hand and murmured, Lord Mizukage, now that Sunagakure Village has been occupied by Konoha, the Kingdom of Thunder and the Kingdom of Earth will definitely take action. After learning the news, should we invite some reinforcement? Terumi Medi frowned slightly when she heard this. At this time, the number of ninjas following her at the Karigakure border had reached nearly 5,000. This number is already quite a lot for the current Karigakure village. If she were to request reinforcement from the village, the interior of the village would become very dangerous as a Mizukage. Terumi Medi didn't want to take this risk, and she felt that neither Kumo Ninja nor Iwa Ninja had any interest in Karigakure village at this time. After all, the weak Karigakure village cannot pose any substantial threat to them. But Konoha is different. The already powerful Konoha village has now occupied Sunagakure village. Although it is not a strong alliance, the strength of Konoha village will only become stronger and stronger if the Cloud Ninja village and the Iwa Ninja village do not take any action. Then when the Konoha village breathes its last breath, it will be the end of them. Terumi Medi thought so in her heart. Unifying the ninja world, will peace really come? Terumi Medi thought so in her heart. Looked up at the sky, his eyes dazed for a moment, but soon his eyes became firm again. Like Tsunade, she also hopes that the ninja world can achieve true peace. Fire, wind, thunder, earth, and water. These 5 countries have brought too many wars and casualties to the ninja world. Terumi Medi has made up her mind in her heart that this time she must help Konoha village achieve the goal of unifying the ninja world, even if there is no Mizukage like her anymore. It doesn't matter. At this moment, a sound of space trembling came, and then a familiar figure stood beside Terumi Medi. He had long silver hair, a black mask, and a slim looking figure. The person who came was none other than Kakashi. After seeing the person coming, Terumi Medi's expression changed obviously, and a touch of joy appeared in her eyes. Mizukage-sama, this is the information that Hokage-sama sent me to give you. Compared to the delighted Terumi Medi, Kakashi looked very serious. As he spoke, he took out a rolled up scroll and handed it forward. At this time, the guards around Terumi Medi also noticed the sudden appearance of Kakashi. After a brief confusion, they chose to ignore it. After all, they are quite familiar with Kakashi, and there are even rumors that this person is likely to be their consort in Kirigakure Village. Although Medi Terumi has never admitted it personally, she has never clarified such rumors in this cruel ninja world. Many people do not care about the love between children, just like Orochimaru and those in the Akatsuki organization. They have not been looking for their significant other throughout their lives. But even so, there are still a small number of people who have expectations for love, just like Terumi Medi and Kakashi today. The relationship between the two people is ambiguous. Even though neither party has clearly expressed their feelings, anyone with a discerning eye can see that there is something special between them. On the field, Terumi Medi took the scroll from Kakashi's hand, opened it directly, and began to read the contents. The next moment, her brows gradually wrinkled. Is what this says true? Terumi Medi frowned slightly and said with some surprise, has the Cloud Ninja Village secretly met with the Iwa Ninja Village? Kakashi nodded at this. The third Tsuchikage and the fourth Raikage met in the Kingdom of Iron yesterday. If nothing else happens, they should be united now. After hearing Kakashi's words, Terumi Medi was even more surprised, but what surprised her was not the alliance between Kumo Ninja and Iwa Ninja, but that Konoha Village could detect the whereabouts of the shadow of one village. Knowing that in a ninja village, any information about the shadow is extremely confidential, not to mention people from other villages, even people from this village, cannot take the initiative to explore any information about the shadow. After all, in every ninja village, shadows play an irreplaceable role. Sometimes it is even said that the life and death of a shadow is directly related to the survival of the entire village. Although several ninja villages in the 5 major countries send spies to each other to find out information from each other, even Kirigakure Village has people who are lurking in other ninja villages all year round. But Terumi Medi had never heard that their spies in Kirigakure Village had reported back about the whereabouts of the shadows in other villages. But Konoha actually got the whereabouts of Raikage and Tsuchikage at the same time, which made people feel chilling. Terumi Medi felt that there might be spies from Konoha Village even around her. Chapter 335. In other words, which country should we attack first? Sand Hidden Village, inside the Kazakage building. Wearing a dark green coat, light blonde hair, and a fair face without a single flaw, it was Tsunade. At this time, she was sitting on the main seat in the room with a serious look on her face. Behind her stood a figure on each side, tall and with unruly long white hair. The one on the left was Jiraiya. The one on the right is a thin figure wearing a white dog face mask. Although he is wearing a mask, it can still be seen from the barb-like hairstyle that this person is Shizu. In front of Tsunade stood the senior Sunagakure officials headed by Chiyo. Tsunade looked silent, looking at the group of white-haired old guys in front of her. She felt deeply sad in her heart. In ordinary people's families, their family should have been able to take care of themselves long ago, but now they are still working hard for their village. Tsunade laughed at herself in her heart. In fact, the same was true for her family. Her grandfather, Senju Hashirama, lived in a war-torn era since childhood. Even though he later established Konoha Village with strong methods, he even divided the 9-tailed beasts equally for the sake of peace given to 5 countries. But later, due to his years of fighting, he suffered countless hidden injuries, and finally died after a battle with Uchiha Madara. As for the second grandfather, Senju Tobirama, he died at the hands of 2 rebellious ninjas from Kumo Ninja Village, Golden Horn and Silver Horn, in order to protect his companions. At the same time, his death also became the trigger of the Second Ninja War, causing countless casualties in the ninja world again. 2 grandfathers, parents, and even his own younger brother, they all died in the war to protect the village. It is precisely because of this that Tsunade wants to unify the ninja world and end the war completely. The reason why she appeared in Sunagakure Village today was, on the one hand, to stabilize the civilians in Sunagakure Village and try not to panic. On the other hand, Tsunade is preparing to announce the next arrangements for Sunagakure village. In addition to the 2000 ninjas brought by Dingzao, Tsunade also transferred some elites from major families to come here, including Nera, Akimichi and Yamanaka. These families were absolutely loyal to the Hokage line, so she felt free to hand over Sunagakure village to them first. Moreover, the Nera clan is already highly intelligent and good at strategy, so Tsunade can rest assured that they can temporarily manage Sunagakure village. But she also knew very well that it would take some time to truly control the seemingly surrendered Sunagakure village. However, Tsunade firmly believes that when the ninja world is unified, when the general trend is the general trend, and everyone in the ninja world becomes a member of the same country, everyone will be integrated together. After making a series of arrangements, Tsunade and Jiraiya were brought back to Konoha by Shizu using the Flying Thunder God technique. However, to be on the safe side, Tsunade still led a large group of Itachi towards the Sunagakure village. Now Itachi already possesses cage level strength, and with the assistance of Anbu, Tsunade believes that he can successfully complete the tasks assigned to him. Eliminate any voice of resistance to Konoha village in Sunagakure village. When she reaches Tsunade's position, there is no such thing as being soft-hearted. For the sake of the general situation, some sacrifices are necessary. Soon Itachi set out with a dozen Anbu. When Tsunade returned to the Hokage's office, she met the two people immediately, Uchiha Fugaku and Hinata Hisashi. The patriarch of two of the most powerful families in Konoha, Lord Hokage, Lord Hokage. The two of them bowed respectfully to Tsunade. At this time, they already knew that Sunagakure village had surrendered. However, in just a few days, Sunagakure village was easily captured. It must be said that Tsunade's decision was very wise. Although the prerequisite for achieving this is that Konoha village is strong enough, it is undeniable that Tsunade plays the most important role in this. At the same time, Konoha village only became so powerful after her arrival. I just received news that the Cloud Ninja village has formed an alliance with the Iwa Ninja village, and the fourth Raikage has also met that old guy Noki. Tsunade raised her head and looked at the two of them. Cloud Ninja village. When Tsunade mentioned the Cloud Ninja village, a sharp light flashed unnoticeably in his eyes. He has not forgotten that a few years ago, Yun Ninja village murdered their Hyuga clan. If it had not been discovered in time, the Hyuga clan would have suffered heavy losses. The military power of the Cloud Ninja village is strong, and Anoka's strength is strong. If these two families unite, they will still pose some threat to Konoha. As if she didn't notice anything unusual about Hizu, Tsunade continued to speak. Do the two clan leaders have any good suggestions for the Kumo ninja and the Iwa ninja? Tsunade focused on the two of them. Fugaku and the two were slightly startled when they heard this. They looked at each other and were about to say something. In other words, which country should we attack first? Tsunade's voice sounded in the office again. Sure enough, everything has been prepared. Fugaku secretly thought to himself. He knew that Tsunade seemed to be discussing with them, but in fact she was just informing them. In fact, for Fugaku and Hizu, today's scene was also expected, just a few days in advance. But this doesn't affect anything. Just yesterday, the two of them had followed Tsunade's instructions and concentrated all the power in the clan, and it didn't stop there. Fugaku was also keenly aware that the ninjas who were out on missions had begun to return to the village one after another. This also means that a real battle is about to begin. Iwa Ninja village. Compared to the powerful Kumo ninja, the Iwa Ninja village is easier to defeat. At this moment, Hizu said slowly, even if the Iwa Ninja village and the Cloud Ninja village are now united, it is almost impossible for them to gather their troops due to the terrain. So, we just need to quickly defeat the Iwa Ninja village, and then free up our hands to clean up the Cloud Ninja village. There was a hint of surprise on Fugaku's face when he heard this. As the leader of the Uchiha clan, he had also heard about what happened back then. He originally thought that Hizu would take the opportunity to capture Kumo Ninja village first to avenge himself. Unexpectedly, Rizu would do the opposite. But soon, Fugaku figured out that, although Konoha village seemed to have easily occupied Sunagakure village, that was mainly because there was no real leader in Sunagakure village. The Iwa Ninja village and Kumo Ninja village both have shadow leaders. Even if Naraku and others have the strength to assassinate Inoki in the 4th Raikage, it will only arouse the anger of the Iwa Ninja and Kumo Ninja. Especially the Kingdom of Thunder, which is good at military affairs and has strict internal control. Even if the 4th generation Raikage is killed in battle, they will not surrender easily. Chapter 336 Underground Laboratory, Strange White Snake Corpse. Konoha Village, inside the Hokage's office. After Tsunade, Shikaku, Fugaku and Hizu discussed for a long time, they finally decided to launch an offensive against the Iwa Ninja village first, as Hizu said. Now that the plan was in place, Tsunade directly gave the order to start the operation. This time, Tsunade did not send out only the top experts to scare them, like she did to Sand Hidden Village. Tsunade knew that would not be enough. The Iwa Ninja village is not like the Sunagakure village. Tsunade knows that this is a tough nut to crack. But even if it was hard, she would bite it completely this time. This time the operation was led by Fugaku and Hizu, leading 10,000 ninja troops to the border of the Land of Fire. The order given by Tsunade was to occupy the Kingdom of Stone, after arriving at the border, and then temporarily station there to wait for notification. Soon, countless ninjas in Konoha village received orders, and began to gather as evening approached. Fugaku and Hizu set out with nearly 10,000 ninjas just in case. This time Tsunade assigned K to Fugaku and Hizu as their first vanguard point. Although K is very strong now, he does not have outstanding leadership skills. He can lead a few teams, but hundreds of people may be a bit difficult for him, let alone nearly 10,000 people. In fact, if she wasn't worried about the Kirigakure village, Tsunade's original plan was to have Kakashi and Gai team up to lead these ninjas. It's just that the plan couldn't keep up with the changes. Now that Kakashi is gone, he can only let Fugaku and Nizu take over. As the heads of the clan, they may not have top combat power, but they have excellent leadership skills. It's just leading 10,000 ninjas, so it's not that difficult for them. The Kingdom of Wind, a desolate location outside Sand Hidden Village. Swish, a figure flashed past and appeared here, with short red hair and a handsome face. It was Naraku. Naraku frowned slightly when he came here, and then his eyelids trembled slightly. The next moment, a strange energy was released from his body. Kagura's heart eyes were opened, and he could see all the energy fluctuations within a 10-mile radius. Soon, as if he had discovered something, he turned and walked towards the right. This is it. Naraku murmured softly, then raised his foot, and stepped down sharply. Boom. Instantly, the ground shook violently, and then a hole more than 1 meter wide appeared in front of him. Naraku looked down, and saw a row of stairs made of mud appearing in his sight. Without hesitation, Naraku raised his feet, and walked down. Soon he came to the underground, where there was no sunlight, only darkness. His eyes condensed slightly. And the next moment scarlet eyes slowly appeared, and Naraku's vision was suddenly enhanced a lot. Although the Sharingan does not have the ability to see at night, his vision has been enhanced several times, allowing him to do some simple things even in the dark. At this time, sharp rays of light flashed in his eyes. Call out, call out, call out. The next moment, several ear-piercing sounds were heard. In an instant, several shurikens tore through the air and stabbed him. It can be seen that there is a layer of green light on the blade of the shurikens. It is obvious that it is smeared with poison. If it were an ordinary person, in such a small space, and at such a close distance, it would be difficult to avoid such a number of shurikens. But it was obvious that Naraku was not an ordinary person. Facing the shurikens rushing forward, Naraku's chakra surged, and the next moment, two emitting golden light poked out from his back. Clang. Clang. In an instant, there was a sound of metal collision, and the chain's shurikens were swept away by the chains. Without hesitation, Naraku continued to walk forward. Soon after he walked out of the passage, he found a row of well-built houses in front of him. Naraku stepped in, and noticed the large and small glass bottles in the room at first sight. It seems like this is Orochimaru's underground laboratory, Naraku thought to himself. After the incident in Sunagakure village was over, Naraku first returned to Konoha, and then decided to patrol around Sunagakure village. He was still a little worried about Orochimaru. Now that Orochimaru is powerful, and has mastered the reincarnation of the earth, it can even be said that he can now walk sideways in the ninja world. Even in Konoha village, where there are many powerful people, Kakashi and Shizu are probably the only ones who can survive the encounter with Orochimaru. These two eldest brothers who have mastered the art of flying Thunder God can basically save their lives, as long as they don't encounter anyone with 6th level combat power. Even Itachi may not be Orochimaru's opponent now. As for himself, Naraku is very confident that Orochimaru is no match for him. That's why he dared to look for Orochimaru alone. But to Naraku's disappointment, he checked all around Sunagakure village, but still found no trace of Orochimaru. However, in a laboratory like this, he found a few points as before. Naraku carefully inspected the underground laboratory. Just when he thought he would gain nothing like before, a white snake corpse that resembled a mummy appeared in his sight. The white snake is very young, not as thick as Naraku's arm. Naraku has seen this kind of white snake before. As long as they reach adulthood, they are all huge pythons. The one in front of him is obviously not yet an adult. But what makes Naraku feel strange is that this white snake obviously has no wounds on its body, and even its internal organs are intact. But why has it lost its vitality? With Kagura's inner eye open, he could clearly sense the situation in White Snake's body, and there were no wounds on the other part his body. Naraku stretched out his fingers, and the next moment, blue chakra surged and covered his fingers. Then he used his fingers as a knife to cut open the White Snake's body. Then he observed carefully. Although he was not familiar with medical ninjutsu, this did not prevent him from checking the quality of the organs on these white snakes. Kagura's heart eye itself has a very powerful perception ability, especially after reaching the realm of Naraku. Its perception of vitality is also very strong. With Kagura's heart eye and Sharingan's powerful vision, Naraku carefully observed these organs and found that there was no damage on them. Suddenly Naraku felt even more strange, knowing that this white snake was a psychic beast. You must know that when a psychic beast suffers a fatal attack, it will immediately use reverse channeling to return to the psychic world. Just like Naraku has fought with Orochimaru so many times, except for the bone snake last time, he has never really killed any of the other pythons that were channeled. Every time a fatal attack is about to fall on them, their bodies will turn into a puff of smoke and dissipate. Naraku knew that it was an instinctive self-protection for the psychic beast. Chapter 337 Anoka's Thoughts. In the underground laboratory, a pair of scarlet eyes were carefully observing the body of a white snake. At this time, Naraku frowned and his face became increasingly ugly. Although he still hasn't figured out the real cause of White Snake's death, he feels that Orochimaru should be studying some forbidden technique. Before the union, Chiyo said that Orochimaru also asked for the reincarnation technique from her. Therefore, Naraku concluded that the cause of White Snake's death should have something to do with this technique. It was only then that Naraku thought that when fighting Orochimaru, the opponent's mental power seemed to be stronger than before. He didn't care about it at the time, but now it seems that he has successfully solved the shortcomings of the technique of immortal reincarnation. Thinking of this, Naraku had a surprised expression on his face. The technique of immortal reincarnation itself allows him to replace his body, but now the other party has solved the problem of mental damage. In this case, in another sense, Orochimaru can now almost achieve immortality. That is eternal life. A complicated look appeared in Naraku's eyes, and then he sealed White Snake's body into a scroll, and appeared on the ground in a flash. It was noon at this time, and the dazzling sunshine was shining on the earth, making people feel very warm. Let's just let it happen. Naraku shook his head and thought to himself, then gave up the idea of continuing to search for Orochimaru's whereabouts, and soon his figure disappeared in a flash. Naraku knew that compared to Orochimaru's threat, he had more important things to do now. Behind Iwa Ninja Village, a hidden location, the short Inoki stepped here. At this time, his face was frosty and his expression was not very good. Lord, it's such a kitsch, you are here. A burst of laughter sounded, and then a pale figure emerged from the ground. It was Beiju's clone, Humph. Inoki snorted coldly when he saw the white Zetsu clone. Now the Akatsuki organization is really breaking its promise. Not only did it fail to kill the target, it even sent people to monitor the Jinkriki of our Iwa Ninja Village. Ah, you looking for death? As He spoke, an invisible aura was released from Onoki's body. Boom. Visible to the naked eye, the air around Onoki fluctuated like a tide, and then all this momentum was pressed towards the Beizetsu clone. Beiju, who was just a clone, was naturally unable to withstand the pressure of this momentum. Soon his body trembled, and he collapsed directly to the ground. Strong killing intent was released from Onoki's body. Damn it, Kisame and the others were discovered. The white Zetsu clone cursed inwardly. He didn't expect Onoki to come back so soon. However, the white Zetsu clone didn't pay too much attention to this. The Jinchuriki himself was a very special existence in the ninja village, and there would be some people monitoring him almost wherever he went. Not to mention that in this special period, it is normal for Kisame and the others to be discovered. But what made the white Zetsu clone angry was that Kisame and the others didn't notify him after they were discovered. In fact, the white Zetsu clone may not be aware of it. This does not blame Kisame and the others. Before that, after Kisame and Scorpion were discovered by Onoki and the others, the other party immediately attacked them. When forced, they could only choose to retreat. After that, Onoki arrived here, so Kisame and the others didn't have a chance to deliver the news. Haha, Lord Suchikage, this is probably just a misunderstanding. Iwa Ninja Village is a friend of our Akatsuki organization, and we will never do anything to our friends, the white Zetsu clone said with a smile on his face. Although Onoki looked extremely angry at this time, Beiju's clone knew that, since he appeared here, it meant that there would be cooperation between the two of them. Otherwise, Onoki, a dignified Suchikage, would never bother to compete with his clone, let alone take out his anger on one of his clones. The white Zetsu clone guessed correctly. The reason why Onoki came to him this time was, on the one hand, to warn the Akatsuki organization not to think about attacking the Jinchuriki of their Iwanin village. On the other hand, Onoki wanted to win over the Akatsuki organization. Although his negotiations with the fourth Raikage in the Kingdom of Iron went very smoothly, Onoki knew very well that the Kingdom of Earth was far away from the Kingdom of Thunder. Even if they formed an alliance, it would be difficult for the two countries' forces to come together. If it were before, Onoki might not have cared. He still had great confidence in the strength of the Iwa Ninja village he led. But now he doesn't dare to think that. When thinking of Konoha village, Onoki will think of Uzumaki Naraku and the nearly 100 meter tall golden god of war. Because of Naraku Uzumaki, Onoki attaches great importance to the current Konoha village. In Onoki's view, with Uzumaki Naraku's current strength, if Tsunade sends him to attack the Iwa Ninja village, he will be the only one in the entire Iwa Ninja village who can stop him. But you must know that there is more than one Uzumaki Naraku in Konoha village. Yingaya Shining, the young genius who was barely defeated by him a few years ago, his strength cannot be underestimated. Not to mention Jiraiya among the Sannin. Although he was unwilling to admit it, Onoki knew that the strength of Konoha village had indeed returned to its peak. There are many shadow level experts, and the Konoha village of this period is no worse than that of the first generation. That's why Onoki wanted to bring the Akatsuki organization in. As far as he knew, there were many shadow level experts in the Akatsuki organization, and even their leader had the eyes of the legendary Six Paths Sage, the Samurai. If we can unite with the Akatsuki organization, let alone fight against the Leaf Village, we can even directly fight back and capture the Fire Country. Since you haven't completed the assassination of Uzumaki Naraku, then help me do another thing. Onoki stood with his hands behind his back and said coldly to the Beizetsu clone, "Oh, I wonder if Tsuchikage-sama needs help from our Akatsuki organization for anything else." Beiju's clone still looked playful. Humph, Onoki snorted again. He still had some understanding of Beiju's clone. The other party's method of gathering information is much better than that of the Iwa Ninja village. At this time, they must have already known that Konoha village is sending troops to their Iwa Ninja village. Now they are just pretending not to know. Onoki frowned slightly, thinking about how he could get help from the Akatsuki organization with the smallest benefit. As he often cooperates, he knows that this time the other party will never let go of this opportunity. If he speaks first, they will definitely open their mouths like a lion. Although Iwa Ninja village is not short of money, it is not to the point where it can be squandered at will. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. we cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 338 War is Cruel. Ibuguiwa Ninja Village. Old guy, don't you just want our Akatsuki organization to help you? Haha. Looking at Inoki who was deep in thought in front of him, Beiju's clone snorted coldly in his heart. He had already guessed the other party's intention, but for Beizetsu's side, they would take away the 4 and 5 tails of Iwa Ninja Village sooner or later, and they would definitely have a grudge with Iwa Ninja Village. In addition, Konoha Village is now going to launch a war against Iwa Ninja Village. By then, whether Iwa Ninja Village and the Inoki in front of me will still exist is another matter, so it is impossible for the Akatsuki organization to help Iwa Ninja Village. However, although he thinks so in his heart, Beiju's clone will not say it directly. He also has his own plan. Now that Konoha Village is going to launch a war against Iwa Ninja Village, it can be regarded as giving them a chance point and opportunity to weaken the Leaf Village. If the Akatsuki organization can fight against Konoha with our Iwa Ninja Village, then we can take the opportunity to seize the 9-tailed Jinchuriki from Konoha Village. Then the strongest tailed beast in the ninja world will belong to you, Inoki said. What an old fox. Beiju's clone secretly thought in his heart that Inoki's operation was like a white wolf with empty hands taking advantage of the opportunity to take away the strongest tailed beast. The Kyuubi is no different from tricking a child. What Inoki meant by saying this was that he not only wanted the Akatsuki organization to help him fight against the Leaf Village, he also wanted to fight back, and it was not impossible to even take the opportunity to occupy the Land of Fire. It's really a beautiful thought. Haha, Lord Suchikage, our Akatsuki organization pays attention to rules when doing things. There are some things we will not do. You should know this, Beiju's clone spoke with a hint of rejection in his tone. Inoki was not surprised by this. He knew very well that those were the ones who could not impress the Akatsuki organization. News from the Three Tails. Suddenly, Inoki's next words successfully attracted the attention of the White Zetsu clone. The Three Tails. After the 4th Mizukage Yagura was killed by Itachi, the Three Tails disappeared with it. Previously, the White Zetsu clone also left multiple clones in Kirigakure Village. In order to find traces of the Three Tails, you must know that the 9-tailed beasts do not have entities. Even if they disappear due to the sudden death of the Jinchuriki, the tailed beasts will be resurrected after a period of time. As for how long this time will be, no one knows. The White Zetsu clone felt a little surprised. He didn't expect that his side had not discovered the traces of the Three Tails, but was discovered by Inoki. Just when Beiju's clone looked hesitant, a wave of space fluctuations came, and then a figure wearing a black robe appeared here. Wearing a large black robe and an orange tiger striped mask, the person coming was none other than Obito. You are. Inoki instantly became alert when he saw the person coming. He thought of a mysterious member of the Akatsuki organization, the man who called himself Madara Uchiha. Haha, don't be nervous, it's Suchikage-sama. I'm the leader of Akatsuki, Uchiha Obito. A slightly hoarse voice came from Obito's mouth. Then a pair of scarlet eyes appeared in Inoki's sight, and his heart suddenly shivered. Sharingan, a member of the Uchiha clan. Inoki looked at Obito with a suspicious expression. The Uchiha clan is a wealthy family in Konoha, especially the Sharingan, which is very famous in the ninja world. A trace of vigilance arose in Inoki's heart. Although judging from the performance of the Beiju clone, the other party should be with him, Inoki did not dare to be careless. Not paying attention to Inoki's abnormality, Obito spoke slowly again. Our Akatsuki organization can agree to cooperate with you, but with the news about the Three Tails and the capture of the 9-tails Jinchuriki, these Iwa Ninja villages have to help us. Inoki looked hesitant when he heard this, but in the end he nodded in agreement. As long as the Akatsuki organization can help the Iwa Ninja village block Konoha, we will help you capture the 9-tails. As for the whereabouts of the Three Tails, we will give it to you first, after you express your attitude. Inoki said in a deep voice, and after saying that, he left here in a flashpoint. After Obito arrived, he had a strong sense of crisis. He had a feeling that the opponent's strength was definitely not inferior to him. The Ninja world is going to be completely overturned. Inoki secretly thought in his heart. First Konoha strongly announced that it would unify the ninja world, and now the Akatsuki organization, which has always been low-key, has also emerged. The storm is coming point. Although Inoki was aware of the Akatsuki organization's purpose of exploring the tailed beasts, he felt helpless at this time, and could only temporarily seek skin from the tiger until the subsequent operations in the Cloud Ninja Village began. By then the situation will improve. Konoha Village. The 5th Hokage is just a junior, but he actually wants to rule the entire ninja world. How can you let you succeed like this? After leaving there, Inoki returned to that Tsuchikage office, where he summoned his son Huangtu, his disciple Akatsuki, and the 2 Jinchuriki, the 4-tailed Jinchuriki Laozi and the 5-tailed Jinchuriki Han. These people are all the high-end combat power of the Iwa Ninja Village, especially the 2 Jinchuriki. With the help of the power of the tailed beasts, they can even fight against the strong cage level without falling behind. At this time, these people all had serious expressions on their faces. It was obvious that they already knew that Konoha had sent troops to attack their Iwa Ninja Village. They still have some understanding of the strength of Konoha Village. In the 3rd Ninja World War, with one enemy and many enemies, knew that this was a tough battle. Even if they were unlucky, maybe Iwa Ninja Village would follow everyone in the footsteps of Tsunagakure Village. He became the 2nd Ninja Village to be captured by Konohagakure, Red Earth, Laozi. At this moment, Inoki spoke. You to each lead 3,000 ninja troops to guard the border. You must not let any ninja village cross there. Lois and Han, you will lead 10,000 ninja troops together as the vanguard to the Kingdom of Stone, and you sit as the first battlefield against the Leaf Village. Inoki said in a deep voice, the Kingdom of Stone is the border between the Kingdom of Fire and the Kingdom of Earth. It is a small country. When the war broke out between the Iwa Ninja and Konoha in the past, it was also the first battlefield point. Although this is a bit cruel to the people of the Kingdom of Stone, it is the fact. The ninja world is cruel and full of killings. People in small countries have no strength and no right to speak. They have no ability to resist any of the 5 major countries. Often when a war breaks out, the first people to lose their homes are people from small countries. The former country of Rain is the best example. Maybe Nagato's parents were not killed by Konoha's ninjas, but the reality is that countless parents died in the ruthless war. No matter when, war is cruel. Chapter 339. The 4th Ninja War begins. Inside the Iwa Ninja Village, after Inoki's order was given, all the ninjas in the entire Iwa Ninja Village began to move quickly. They all know that war is coming again. Nanabe, in a hidden mountain near Iwa Ninja Village, there are several figures here. Not only were Obito and Zetsu here, but the shark-faced Kisame, Deidara who looked like a child, and Scorpion hiding in the Firyu tiger were also gathered here at the same time. Zetsu, whose body was shrouded in giant pitcher plants, looked at Obito with questioning eyes. He knew that Obito and Deidara had successfully captured Nanao, but these 2 people did not tell him personally. Faced with Zetsu's inquiry, Obito just turned his head and glanced at him, with a sneer on his lips under the mask. Now he is no longer the chess piece at the mercy of the other party. In Obito's heart, he already has his own ideas. Although he still knew what Zetsu and the dead Uchiha Madara were planning behind his back, Obito knew that everything must be in his own hands. Just like the tailed beasts were originally meant to be sealed into the outside demons, but now Obito has directly sealed them into his own body, and there are more than one. Yes, now there are 2 tailed beasts sealed in his body at the same time. It is the 6-tailed rhinoceros and the 7-tailed Changming. Sarutobi Ikumi was originally imprisoned in his Camu space by Obito. After successfully sealing the 7 tails, he did not let go of the 6 tails and directly pulled it out of Sarutobi Ikumi's body. With Obito's physique now carrying both Uchiha and Senju bloodlines, it is not difficult to suppress these 2-tailed beasts at the same time. You must know that the cells in his body are the product of complete fusion with the 1st generation cells. They are just 2-tailed beasts, and they can be suppressed directly with the flip of a hand. Seeing Obito's attitude, Zetsu's expression changed slightly, and a sharp light flashed in his eyes, but in the end he didn't say anything. I'll leave the Iwa Ninja Village to you. I'll go find out about the Kingdom of Thunder. After saying these words, Zetsu's body slowly dived under the ground. No matter who it is, no one can block my way, Obito thought secretly in his heart, and then he stepped deep into the mountain and slowly disappeared. The remaining 3 Kisame smiled helplessly, and each casually found a place to rest in the cave. Uchiha. Obito, I didn't expect you to dare to seal the tailed beast directly in your body. Zetsu appeared in a desolate location after leaving the cave. At this time, half of his face could be seen covered with a strong wave of anger, murderous intent. The one who dominates this body at this time is Black Zetsu. It seems you have guessed something, but so what? Heniju's eyes were filled with killing intent. Obito. Uchiha, just a chess piece. Heniju sneered, then dived underground and disappeared here, in the Cloud Ninja village, reporting to the Raikage-sama. 10,000 ninja troops have been assembled and are waiting for your orders at any time. Deru, known as Raikage's right hand, knelt on one knee in front of a strong figure. He has dark skin, a light yellow back, and a very strong build. He is the 4th Raikage. It can be seen that he is standing in a very empty position at this time, and in front of him, there is an endless stretch of densely packed human figures. This is a team of 10,000 ninja troops. The reason why such a large number of ninja troops are gathered is because the 4th generation Raikage is preparing to do a big thing. Like Inoki, the 4th Raikage immediately issued an order to assemble ninjas after learning that Konoha village had successfully captured Tsunagakure village and had sent troops to Aiwa Ninja village. During the previous negotiation between him and Inoki, they had anticipated this situation, so Yun Ninja village was able to gather tens of thousands of ninjas in such a short period of time. Sure enough, this old guy got it right. The 4th Raikage secretly thought in his heart. When the two of them were negotiating in the Kingdom of Iron, Inoki had asserted that if Tsunagakure village was captured by Konoha village, their target would definitely be the Kingdom of Earth. At that time, he didn't take it seriously, thinking that Inoki was just making random guesses. Now it seems that the other party still has some abilities. Looking up and looking at the dense crowd of people in front of him, the 4th Raikage looked serious. These were the elites of his Cloud Ninja village. After this battle, he didn't know how many people would be left who could come back safely. Even the 4th Raikage himself was a little confused about the final outcome of this war. In recent years, the prosperity of Konoha village has been widely spread in the ninja world, and even the fact that he had his arm cut off by a teenage child was well known to everyone in the ninja world. Uzumaki Naraku, Hatake Kakashi. 2 young figures appeared in the mind of the 4th Raikage. One had destroyed one of his arms at the border of the Land of Fire, and the other had defeated him openly in the Cloud Ninja village. Although the 4th generation was reluctant to admit it, he knew very well in his heart that the talents of these 2 people were far beyond him. After all, even the secret technique of lightning escape passed down from his family had been developed by them to be stronger than his own. However, although the 4th Raikage mentally recognized the strength of Naraku and Kakashi, this did not mean that he would surrender to Konoha. As the Kumo Ninja village with the most powerful military force in the ninja world, they also have their own pride. Just like himself, it is impossible to surrender unless he dies in battle. If the ninja world is really going to be unified, it can only mean that our era is over. The 4th Raikage thought to himself. Set off. A loud roar came from his mouth, and the next moment, blue light surged from his body, and then sparks of electricity rose from his body. Then his body flashed, and he quickly came to the front of the team. Swish, swish, 2 figures stood on either side of him. The one on the left was an uncle wearing sunglasses and carrying several knives on his back. It was Kirabe. It can be seen that at this time, his face has also put away the usual laughter, and like the 4th Raikage, his face is full of seriousness. Although Kirabe is sometimes a bit unreliable when driving, it also depends on the occasion. In the 3rd Ninja War, Nazen and the 4th generation, who had not succeeded the Raikage at that time, worked together to force back the man known as the Yellow Flash. Therefore, as a partner, Kirabe is undoubtedly the best, and the 4th Raikage has unconditional trust in him. On his right side is Deru. The reason why he brought him along was that the 4th Raikage wanted to experience him in advance. After all, the future belongs to young people like them. Tsunagakure village was captured by Konoha, and Kirigakure village shocked Kumo Ninja at the border. The war between Iwa Ninja Village and Konoha Village was about to break out, and Kumo Ninja dispatched tens of thousands of ninja troops. The Fourth Ninja War began. Chapter 340 Naraku's bold idea. The Kingdom of Fire, the home of the Thousand Hands clan, the curse of the evil god, the immortal body. There are really many incredible things in the ninja world. In a hidden secret room, Naraku looked at the motionless figure lying on a stone slab in front of him, and murmured in his mouth point the figure was Hiden's body. After Kushina recovered it, she found that nothing could be found through research, so she handed it over to Naraku. Point at this time, you can see that Hiden's body has recovered completely in front of you, and there doesn't seem to be a trace of scars on the outside. In fact, Naraku was somewhat curious about Hiden's immortality. He remembered that in the original work, Hiden himself was a normal person, but later he joined an organization called the Evil God Cult. Within the Evil God Cult, he was used for an experiment by other believers. After the experiment, he gained immortality and the ability to curse. At the same time, Hiden's success was also the only successful example within the Evil God Cult. Point on another level, Hiden's immortality is not a blessing, but a curse. If you use Orochimaru's corpse reincarnation technique to transfer the soul into Hiden's body, it will be regarded as having the ability to live forever in disguise, Naraku thought to himself. But soon, he shook his head quickly. His eyes fell on Hiden with an undisguised look of disgust. Even if he wanted to pursue immortality, there was no way he would choose Hiden's body. Taking out a scroll from his arms, Naraku sealed Hiden's body inside the scroll point. After placing the scroll in a box in the secret room, Naraku walked out from here. Point at this time, you can see that just opposite this secret room, in another room, there are two bodies covered with white bandages. They are Danzo, who was reincarnated by the dirty soil, and the second generation who was sent back by Kakashi not long ago. Naraku stepped into the room. He first checked whether the sealing technique that sealed Danzo was loose. Although no abnormality was found, Naraku re-strengthened the seal, just to be on the safe side. Point then he turned his head and focused his attention on another figure. Point the second Hokage, Senjuta Biruma. Although his strength is not top notch, his research ability is absolutely unprecedented and unprecedented throughout the history of the ninja world. Point perhaps only Orochimaru, a geek, can stand shoulder to shoulder with the second Hokage. In some aspects, the Flying Thunder God technique, the reincarnation of evil earth, the talent of the second Hokage, who can be called a master of forbidden arts, is absolutely unquestionable. In Naraku's view, even compared to the first generation and Madara, who are known as the god of ninja and ninja Shura, the second generation is not bad at all. Point a complex look flashed in Naraku's eyes, and a bold idea arose in his mind. Point, that is to unlock the second generation seal. Of course, Naraku's purpose does not stop there. Point not only did he want to unlock the second generation seal, but he also wanted to help him get rid of Orochimaru's control, so that like Danzo, he could unlock the art of reincarnation and survive in the world in a new state. Point Naraku believes that, since both Danzo and Madara in the original work have mastered the solution to the jutsu reincarnation, it is impossible for the second generation who created this ninjutsu to be unable to solve the reincarnation jutsu. Point it is very likely that it was controlled by Orochimaru the moment it was summoned. Naraku wanted to take a gamble and bet that his idea was right. And even if his bet is wrong, Naraku is confident that he can reseal the second generation with his strength. With his current strength, even if the second generation in his heyday stood in front of him, Naraku would not be afraid at all. Not to mention that what was in front of him was just a body of filthy earth. Point wow, a golden chain stretched out from Naraku's back, and then the chain was wrapped around the bandage, pulling him up from the ground, while Naraku turned around and walked out of the house. Point soon he used chains to bring the second generation's body to a slightly empty place in the clan's territory. Would clone Naraku, who came here, formed a mark with one hand, and the next moment 3 figures split from his body at the same time, finally forming 3 wooden clones. The wood clone Naraku, who mastered the wood escape ninjutsu, naturally learned this move. Compared with the shadow clone, the wood clone has stronger combat power and is not easily destroyed by the enemy. Point swish, swish, swish. The clones nodded towards the main body and then disappeared in a flash. When they reappeared, they were tens of meters away from Naraku. If you look carefully, you will find 3 clones standing in 3 locations: east, west, and south. It's about to begin. At this moment, a murmur reached Naraku's ears, and then a red-haired figure stood in the north. It was Kushina. "Sister is here," Naraku said with a smile on his face, after seeing Kushina's arrival. After he completely mastered Mount Myoboku's Senjutsu, he used Senjutsu chakra to clear away all the hidden injuries caused by Kushina's childbirth and the tail beast being pulled away, so Kushina's current physique is very strong. Even if Naraku didn't open Kaguya's inner eye, he could still feel the powerful vitality in her body. "Come on, sister, it won't be long," Naraku secretly thought in his heart. He already had a plan in mind. After the Kingdom of Earth and the Kingdom of Thunder are resolved, and the ninja world is unified, he will take that piece. Things are on the agenda. Get ready to start, sister. Naraku turned to Kushina and nodded, who then raised her hand and began to form seals at the same time. The other 3 wooden clones also formed the same mark at the same time. Four-head sun formation. In an instant, the 3 clones and Kushina shouted at the same time, and then a large amount of chakra burst out from their bodies. Instantly, a burst of red energy appeared all around, and then with Naraku as the center, a red rectangular barrier of transparent flames appeared on the field, and Naraku was at the center of the barrier at this time point. Red flames were vaguely visible flashing around the barrier. The four-head sun formation is a formation and barrier that can only be used by 4 shadow level experts working together. Its formation is so powerful that it can even suppress tailed beasts. Although Naraku's wooden clone does not have a shadow level combat power, the amount of chakra has reached a shadow level, which can be regarded as meeting the standards for using the four-head sun formation. This sealing technique was also used when sealing the 2 tails into Kakishi's body, so this time for the sake of safety and Kushina's suggestion, they use the four-head sun formation again. Although the 3 wooden clones plus Kushina's Linoop cannot be compared with the 4 Hokages in the original work, they cannot be underestimated. In fact, in addition to restraining the creatures within the barrier, the four-head sun formation can also play an isolation role, which can weaken the connection between Orochimaru and the second generation. Chapter 341, Unleashing the Reincarnation in the Dirty Land. Konoha Village, the land of the Senju clan. It's about to begin. Naraku looked up at the red flame barrier that had been completely formed in the sky. He knew that the four-head sun formation had been fully deployed. After thinking secretly in his heart, Naraku raised his hands and began to form seals. Untie. The next moment, the golden chain wrapped around the second generation was quickly pulled away, and the white bandages had the same movement. Naraku's scarlet eyes opened, and the golden 6-pointed star pattern exuded a mysterious luster. At this time, he focused all his attention on the second generation. If he found any abnormality, he would definitely take action and reseal it as soon as possible. Soon after all the white bandages were untied, a figure appeared in Naraku's sight. He has silver hair like barbs, an iron forehead protector on his face, and 3 red marks on his cheeks. He wears blue laminated armor. The person in front of him is the second Hokage, Kain. Between the hands swish. At this moment, Naraku's pupils shrank, and Erde's eyelids trembled slightly in his sight. Light blue chakra emerged from Naraku's body. His body tensed slightly, and he was ready to take action at any time. Kushina outside the barrier also frowned, chakra surging in her body. This is the second generation. Who fully opened his eyes was a little confused, but he quickly came to his senses. He looked directly at Naraku opposite, especially after seeing the pair of eternal Mangekyo Sharingan that exuded powerful pupil power. His expression changed slightly. The golden eternal Mangekyo Sharingan also possesses whirlpools and Uchiha bloodlines. At this moment, the second generation spoke slowly, a gleam of light flashing in his eyes. It seems that our Konoha village is getting stronger and stronger now. As he spoke, the corners of Erde's mouth slightly raised, revealing a smile. You've actually guessed my identity. As expected of a second generation with a superior IQ, he is able to judge this information after just a few brief meetings. When he is under control, this intelligence and investigation ability is absolutely top-notch. Naraku thought to himself, and then he opened his mouth and was about to say something when he saw the second generation opposite suddenly raised his hand and started to form seals. Naraku's body tensed instantly, and at the same time that Kagura's inner eye opened, the powerful pupil power of his right eye was about to burst out. Reincarnation in dirty soil, solution. But at this moment, a low shout came from the second generation's mouth, and then Naraku noticed a light yellow light appearing on the second generation's body. The light was fleeting and disappeared quickly. You brats of the Uzumaki clan, don't be nervous. Now that I have released the control of the caster, I won't take action against you anymore, the second generation said slowly. When he said this, there was a hint of dissatisfaction on his face. For the second generation, he felt very unhappy. It was obviously an ninjutsu he developed by himself, but in the end he was controlled by him. He has truly experienced shooting himself in the foot. It was only then that Naraku relaxed his vigilance. He knew that the second generation had completely terminated the connection with Orochimaru. Now he could live freely in this world, as long as he wanted. This seems to be the homeland of my Thousand Hands clan. The second generation raised his head and looked around. Although he had been dead for many years and the surrounding architectural styles had changed a lot, the second generation still recognized the place in front of him as the clan of their clan from the clan emblems that could be seen everywhere. Is this the four-eyed sun formation? At this time, the second generation also noticed the transparent barrier that looked like red flames. It seems that Konoha village is still very strong at this time, the second generation thought in his heart. He is very familiar with the four-eyed sun formation, and he also knows that, in order to use this formation, 4 people with shadow level chakra must work together to use it. That's wrong. Suddenly, the second generation seemed to notice something. His eyes moved around every corner of the barrier, and finally his eyes stopped on Kushina standing in the north corner. Another descendant of the Uzumaki clan, although she was dozens of meters away from Kushina at this time, the second generation still judged her identity from the dazzling red hair mark. You can use the four-eyed sun formation with just one clone. Even the Uzumaki clan, which is famous for its chakra power, would find it difficult to do this. Even the eldest brother in his heyday could only manage to do this. His eyes turned and finally settled on Naraku in front of him. A look of shock appeared on Erde's face. He put away his other thoughts and focused all his attention on Naraku. As the second generation of the Senju clan, he possesses strong sensory abilities. In battle, he can feel the movements of all enemies within several kilometers, as long as he puts his hands on the ground. This point is comparable to Kagura's inner eye of the Uzumaki clan. This is brothers. In just an instant, Erde's shocked expression changed again, and he felt the same aura as Ashirama on Naraku's body. Could it be that the cells of the elder brother were transplanted? A sharp light flashed on the second generation's face, and his sharp eyes looked directly at Naraku opposite, and at the same time an invisible aura burst out from his body. Facing the second generation's reaction, Naraku sneered, and then he formed a mark with one hand. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, the 3 shadow clones guarding the east, west, and south of the barrier instantly turned into 3 pieces of wood and fell to the ground. It was Naraku who released the wood clones. After the wooden clone dissipated, the four-eyed sun formation also dissipated. Naraku and Erde's figures were exposed. Boom. At the same time, a powerful aura rose up from Naraku's body. Compared with the second generation, this aura was more oppressive. Almost instantly, the second generation felt a pressure. Swish. At this moment, a red figure flashed and appeared next to Naraku. It was Kushina. You are? The second generation frowned slightly. He carefully sensed the aura on Kushina's body. Suddenly, his pupils shrank. Jinkriki, a member of the Uzumaki clan, is he my sister-in-law's successor? The second generation secretly thought in his heart that, although Kushina had not yet come to Konoha village when he died, and the two of them had never met, he had long heard that the nine-tailed Jinchuriki at that time, Uzumaki Mito, was his sister-in-law. Said, prepare to select a child from the Uzumaki clan who is suitable to be a Jinchuriki as her successor. Maybe, because of the barrier isolation, he didn't feel the tailed beast's aura just now, but now he clearly felt the Kyuubi's aura on Kushina. Chapter 342 Brother, facts prove you are wrong. Konoha Village, Hokage's office. At this time, Tsunade was looking at the figure opposite with a shocked expression, a familiar figure with silver hair and blue armor. Tsunade, who had not seen the second generation for nearly 20 years, gradually began to get wet. The second generation never married, so he loved Tsunade and Naoki very much, especially Tsunade. In the Senju clan with many men, Tsunade is undoubtedly loved by thousands. The second generation looked at the adult looking Tsunade in front of him and felt a lot of emotions for a while, but compared to Tsunade's sensibility, he seemed very stable. Grandpa, the rope tree. At this moment, Tsunade gritted her teeth and said, "I'm sorry, I didn't tea." At this time, she was in tears. Although Tsunade has gradually entered middle age and has become the shadow of a village and the support of a village, she is still a child in front of her elders, only in front of elders. Will he take off all his defenses and show his most vulnerable side? Swish. The second generation's figure flashed, and when he reappeared, he was already in front of Tsunade. He put his hand on his head and rubbed it twice. A wry smile appeared on the corner of the second generation's mouth. Just now, in the Senju clan's territory, he had learned from Kushina about the death of Naoki in battle. Although it feels a little hard to accept, the second generation knows that this is war, perhaps due to the cycle of history. When the second generation was young, his two younger brothers also died in the war. There were originally 4 brothers, but in the end only he and the first generation were left. Now this scene appeared on Tsunade again. Maybe this is the tragedy of the Senju clan. The second generation thought secretly in his heart. After a long time, another figure appeared in the office. The tall figure with unruly long white hair and red paint on his face was none other than Jiraiya. At this time, the second generation was sitting in the main seat and looking at Jiraiya carefully. His scrutinizing eyes fell on him like a sharp knife, and Jiraiya felt uncomfortable all over. "Zyogang's taste is so bad." Suddenly, the second generation said such a sentence for no reason, and Jiraiya's expression changed slightly. When he opened his mouth to say something, he was stopped by Tsunade's look. "Naraku, you have tricked your master." Jiraiya thought helplessly. He never imagined that at this age, he would meet his parents one day. For a moment, he didn't know how to deal with it. Boom. Boom. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Suddenly the eyes of the 3 people in the room froze slightly. "Hokage-sama, are you there?" Shikaku's voice sounded outside the door. When Tsunade was about to speak and sent him away, the second generation raised his hand to stop her. Then the second generation turned his head and glanced at Jiraiya, and then walked towards the office. The next moment, a touch of darkness appeared, and his figure gradually disappeared into the darkness. Jiraiya smiled helplessly, showed an innocent expression towards Tsunade, and then stepped into the darkness. "Come in." Tsunade, on the other hand, readjusted her emotions before speaking. Squeak. As the door opened, Shikaku stepped in. "Lord Hokage, we just received news from the Kingdom of Thunder. The 4th Raikage suddenly summoned tens of thousands of ninja troops and headed towards the border where Terumi Medi and the others were." Rushed over, Shikaku, who had just entered, spoke eagerly. After hearing the news, Tsunade's eyes narrowed slightly, and then she stepped to sit at the desk, frowning slightly. "You're a brat from the Nara clan. The Kingdom of Thunder has gathered tens of thousands of ninjas, right?" At this time, the second generation who was hiding in the dark said secretly in his heart, with a trace of doubt on his face. "Second generation master." At this moment, a subtle whisper sounded in his ears. The second generation turned around and saw Jiraiya looking at him with a smile on his face, and stretched out his hand to make a gesture of invitation. Seeing this, the second generation disappeared in a flash, and Jiraiya quickly followed. Swish. Swish. 2 figures suddenly appeared on the Hokage rock of the 3rd generation. It was the second generation and Jiraiya. "Kit, tell me, what is the ninja world like today?" the second generation said with a heavy face, then looked down at the yellow rocks at his feet and added, "Monkey they already?" When Jiraiya heard this, his smile instantly disappeared, and his expression gradually became serious. He knew that the identity of the second generation had changed at this time. He was no longer a parent, but an admirable ancestor. Then Jiraiya spoke slowly. first briefly describing the current changes in the ninja world, and then told the story that Konoha village was now preparing to annex the other 4 countries and unify the ninja world. When the second generation heard that it was Tsunade who gave the order to unify the ninja world, his dirty reincarnated eyes trembled slightly. Brother, it turns out you were wrong. After he understood more about it, the second generation asked Jiraiya to leave. At this time, he was standing alone on the Hokage rock. When Hashirama said that he wanted to establish a ninja village, he had proposed that he should take the opportunity to plan other forces in the ninja world together and establish an organization with absolute dominance. Only in that way can we achieve a certain level of power, reduce wars. However, his proposal was directly rejected by the first generation at that time. The consequence was that after the death of the first generation, in less than 20 years, many ninja wars had broken out in the ninja world, causing countless casualties. If the first generation learns all this, I'm afraid they will regret their original decision. However, compared to you, the mistakes I made seem to be quite big. Brother, the second generation said slowly. Although Jiraiya didn't say it clearly just now. The second generation was so perceptive that, even though he only had some partial information, he also noticed something. That was the successor he chose. His disciple, the third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, didn't seem to be very qualified. After standing on the Hokage rock and thinking for a long time, he still wanted to know something about the third generation, Danzo and others. Swish. In a flash, he disappeared from the spot, and when he reappeared, he had arrived in the secret room of the Thousand Hands clan. In the sight of the second generation, there was a body wrapped in white bandages. It was Danzo. Without hesitation, the second generation raised his hands and began to form seals quickly. Unblock. Then, the white bandages visible to the naked eye were slowly loosened, and then a familiar figure appeared in the second generation's sight. It was Danzo. Well. A murmur sounded, and Danzo, who had been sealed for a long time, slowly opened his eyes, and suddenly a face that he felt was extremely familiar appeared in his pupils. Teacher. Chapter 343. Could it be that the second generation of adults is just for the benefit of future genes? The art of darkness. In the secret room, the second generation didn't give Danzo much time to react. Just after he opened his eyes, he directly used the Jinjutsu on him. This is the art of darkness. Teacher, is it really you? Looking at the darkness in front of him, Danzo could not help but think of the figure he had just seen, and a bold guess arose in his mind. Teacher, it seems that even you have been reincarnated by the dirty soil. A murmur came from Danzo's mouth. The familiar face, when he just opened his eyes, as well as the darkness in front of him, made Danzo confirm one thing, that is, his teacher, the second Hokage, had also been reincarnated by the dirty earth. Danzo's face suddenly became a little ugly, but he knew his teacher's methods very well. Teacher, everything I do is forward. Well. Suddenly, Danzo, who was about to say something, suddenly covered his neck and could no longer make a sound. Despair. Despair. At this moment, a sound of footsteps sounded in Danzo's ears. Although he could not see the figure, he knew that someone was approaching him. Teacher, I also feel wood. Danzo struggled to think of something to say, but in the end no sound came out. The second generation looked at Danzo in front of him with an indifferent expression. After all, he had misjudged his former student. Then he raised his hand and made several marks. 5 minutes later, the second generation walked out of the secret room with a frosty face, and inside the secret room, Danzo's body was once again covered with white bandages. Monkey, I didn't expect that even you would disappoint me. A trace of loneliness flashed across Erday's face. At this time, he regretted his original choice. In fact, when faced with the attacks of Golden Horn and Silver Horn, he had many ways to escape. If nothing else, he could be invincible just by relying on the Flying Thunder God technique. It was just that, because of the accidental death of the first generation and some other reasons, he chose to seek death. Otherwise, it would be impossible for the two of them, Golden Horn and Silver Horn, to kill him. The second generation also did not expect that when he originally chose Hiruzen to succeed Hokage, he would be so useless that he was not only unable to suppress several major families in the village, but even had to be respectful to the damning mansion. These have already made the second generation feel very embarrassed, not to mention all the things that the two idiots Hiruzen and Anzo did together to destroy the foundation of Konoha. The second generation shook his head. He didn't expect that he was smart enough to choose such a successor in the end. If my eldest brother finds out about such a thing, I'm afraid he will be beaten up. With this thought in his mind, the second generation came to a meeting hall in the clan, where there were already several figures waiting for him. Tsunade, Jiraiya, Kushina, the Naraku siblings looking at the people in front of him. The second generation raised the corners of his mouth slightly, showing a rare smile. Then they held a family meeting here. It was said to be a family meeting, but most of it was focused on the development of Konoha village. At the end, a few more people appeared in the meeting hall. There are Uchiha Shizu and Narashikaku. After all, the second generation was born in the Warring States period and had very rich experience, so he also gave everyone a lot of opinions. Tsunade and others quickly made some adjustments. But all this has nothing to do with Naraku. Now he just needs to be a sharp weapon. As long as there are enemies, he will point them there. Soon, Naraku, who left the meeting hall, simply tidied up and then left the village. But this time he was no longer alone. Swish, swish. Two figures appeared here at the same time, with short red hair and a tall and straight figure. One of them was Naraku, and the other one had a barb-like hairstyle. Uchiha Shizu point. Now that Jiraiya has returned to the village, the task of protecting Tsunade naturally falls on him. In addition, there are second generations who also master the Flying Thunder God technique, so there is no need to consider the safety of the village for the time being. Shizu also chose to act with Naraku, and their destination was the Kingdom of Earth. Naraku had no objection to Shizu wanting to go with him. He also knew very well that this time his opponent was not as easy to deal with the Tsunagakure village. Iwa Ninja village is not only far superior to Tsunagakure village in terms of military strength, but it also has a Kage who has been in office the longest in history. The third such a Kage, Anoki. Although Naraku used the complete Susanoo to intimidate the opponent when they were at the border of the Land of Fire, Anoki's dust release ninjutsu was so powerful that he did not dare to underestimate the enemy in the slightest point, and Naraku had a feeling in his heart that the capture of Iwa Ninja village would not go smoothly this time. Naraku knew that Iwa Ninja village had 4-tailed beasts and 5-tailed beasts, and it was self-evident what the tailed beasts meant to the Akatsuki organization, not to mention that he also learned some information from Nagato's mouth. Naraku can basically confirm that Obito and his party will never let them take down the Iwa Ninja village easily. If it was just Anoki alone, Naraku could handle it alone, but if Obito and his party were added to the mix, the situation would be difficult to predict. The matter was so important that Naraku didn't dare to overestimate it, let alone be careless, so this time he brought Shizu with him. After all, he had mastered the Flying Thunder God technique. If something unexpected happened, it would be too late to bring in reinforcement. Swish, swish. At the border of the country of fire, two figures rushed past. They were Naraku and Shizu. They were extremely fast, and it didn't take long for them to cross the border. Because they set off much later than the main force, they had to speed up in order to catch up with them, but this was not a difficult task for the two of them. In Konoha village, Hokage's office, Shikaku raised his head and set his sights on Tsunade sitting at the desk and the two figures behind her, especially the handsome figure with silver hair and blue armor, the second Hokage, Senjuta Biruma. Shikaku was very surprised by the appearance of the second generation. Although he had a certain understanding of the art of reincarnation due to Danzo's appearance before the second generation was actually summoned. He was still very surprised by this incident. After all, in his eyes, the second Hokage was a very powerful ninja, and he also knew that the technique of reincarnation was developed by the second Hokage himself. Is it possible that the second generation of adults wants to resurrect themselves for future generations? Shikaku thought secretly in his heart, although he felt that desecrating the dead was not a good thing. The appearance of the second generation at this time undoubtedly increased the strength of the village again. Chapter 344. The rain stopped. In the Rain Ninja village, in a building made of countless steel and concrete, a blue figure was looking at the scroll in his hand with a slight Frown point. She has a blue round hairstyle with a light blue paper flower, light orange pupils, purple eyeshadow, and wears a black windbreaker with a white edged red cloud pattern printed on it. It was Xiaonan. Has the reincarnation eye been taken away too? Looking at the scroll in her hand, Xiaonan's eyes gradually became complicated. The scroll in his hand just now was passed to her by Nagato in Konoha village using a special method. In the scroll, Nagato briefly described to Conan what he was going through now, including the fact that the Rinnegan eye was taken away by Zetsu. However, there were some things that Nagato did not tell her, perhaps because he was afraid that Xiaonan would not be able to accept them. Conan was very surprised by this. Although she had never believed in these two guys, Obito and Zetsu, what she didn't expect was that the other party dared to directly take away Nagato's eyes. Instantly, a surge of anger spread in Conan's heart, and she even wanted to go directly to Zetsu for revenge. But after thinking about Nagato's current situation, she had to suppress her anger. And Xiaonan also knew very well that with her strength, if she faced Zetsu alone, she would definitely be asking for death. Although Zetsu himself doesn't seem to have any strong combat power, Xiaonan, another member of the Akatsuki organization, still knows a little bit about it. The Kiri ninja rebelled against the ninja, and Kisame Kisuki, the rock ninja Deidara, the filial son of Sand Hidden Village, and Scorpion. Each of these people are extremely powerful beings. Even if they fight alone, Conan is not sure. Point in the past, Nagato was the one who shocked everyone with his absolutely overwhelming strength. Now that Nagato has lost his Rinnegan, his strength is less than 1/10. Conan knows that if the rebel ninjas in those villages know this news, they may do something. What's going on? Therefore, in a short period of time, Xiaonan decided not to have any contact with Zetsu and others. She planned to go to the Land of Fire to explore the specific situation of Nagato, and then look for opportunities to take back the Rinnegan eyes. Then Conan, who was thinking this in her mind, left the place in a flash. Is Konoha village, the country of fire, the hometown of Mr. Jiraiya? Swish. Shortly after Xiaonan left, a figure appeared on the steel ground. A black and white body was covered by a giant pitcher plant. The person who came was none other than Zed. Have you already left here? Ju opened his mouth and murmured. His perception was extremely powerful. After a quick search in this area, he found no trace of Xiaonan, only some residual breath of the other party. Point after a slight hesitation, Zetsu gave up the idea of chasing Conan. For him, Conan's strength was not enough to pose a threat to the plan. If the other party was really ignorant, he would not mind letting Conan follow Yahikope's point. Wow. At this moment, a ball of golden sand suddenly appeared here, and then the ball of gold sand quickly gathered into a figure, which was none other than the fourth Kazakage Eluosha. Point at this time, Eluosha has been completely controlled by Ju, and is now acting as his guard point, although Ju didn't pay too much attention to Eluosha. His ability to manipulate gold sand was quite good. It was precisely because of this that Ju took action to save Eluosha. This body should still have room for improvement, Ju thought to himself as he looked at the expressionless Eluosha. Point for Zetsu, neither Obito nor other members of the Akatsuki organization are under his control, especially Obito, who has obviously begun to no longer trust him due to his sudden increase in strength. If it continues, I know that Obito will definitely find out some truth. By that time, the two sides will turn against each other. Let alone Kaguya. I'm afraid that even Madara will not be able to be resurrected. Point. So it was very clear that his plan had to be changed slightly, so he took the risk of taking away Nagato's eyes. After all, the Samsara Eye is an indispensable part of his plan. Point outside the Rain Ninja village, Xiaonan, who was wearing a black robe, left the Rain Ninja village and rushed towards the far country. But Xiaonan may not know that, just after she left Ninja village, two people sneaked into the village quietly. In the Rain Ninja village, has the rain stopped? It seems that guy had an accident. At this moment, a figure walked down the street of Ninja village and murmured. Point. He has long white hair, 2 dots of red cinnabar between his eyebrows, and a youthful face. If Naraku were here, he would find that the person coming was none other than Orochimaru, whom he had been looking for before. Orochimaru walked in the Rain Ninja village. He had been here many times before, but this time he clearly felt that the Rain Ninja village was different from before. The most obvious thing is that the rain that has been falling for several years has stopped. Orochimaru once had a guess in his mind that the never-ending rain was very abnormal, as if someone was using the rain to sense something. Orochimaru guessed right. The rain that fell in the Rain Ninja village in the past was caused by Nagato's Rain Tiger Free technique. This ninjutsu allows a user to sense the presence of intruders through changes in the rain. Every drop of rain that fell in the previous Rain Ninja village was closely connected to Pain at that time. With this ninjutsu, Pain can sense any enemy that approaches the Rain Ninja village rashly. But now that Pain's 6 paths were destroyed by Naraku and Nagato's Rinnegan was taken away, this ninjutsu was automatically disbanded. In fact, even if Zayanin did not receive the message from Nagato, she could tell from the sudden stop of the rain that the other party must have had an accident. On the street, unlike other ninja villages, the Rain Ninja village was already sparsely populated. Now that Nagato and Konan were not in the village, there were not a few people visible on the entire street. But at this moment, Orochimaru seemed to have sensed something. He suddenly turned his head and looked to the side. He saw there a pale body slowly rising from the ground to reveal his figure. It was exactly Beiju's clone. Lord Orochimaru, you are here. Beiju's clone said with a playful expression. Orochimaru's pale pupils fell on the white Zetsu clone. His eyes were cold, and the corners of his raised lips revealed a sneer. It's really a white eye. With the perfect corpse bone veins and the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan, it seems that Orochimaru must know something. Looking at those pale pupils, Beijufan was shocked in his body and mind. Although he had already received the news that Orochimaru had Byakugan, he was still very surprised when he actually saw it. Then, led by the white Zetsu clone, Orochimaru came to the abandoned high-rise building and saw Zetsu there. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 345. What about the white eyes? Rain Ninja Village, inside the abandoned building. Haha, Mr. Jew, it's been such a long time. Orochimaru narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at the figure opposite him that was enveloped by the giant pitcher plant with a half smile. Next moment, chakra instantly condensed in his eyes. Veins appeared on both sides of his pupils, and he opened his white eyes. Damn it, did he notice something? Suddenly, Black Zetsu, who noticed Orochimaru's movements, was slightly startled, then cursed secretly in his heart, and half of his black face became a little ferocious. Compared to his abnormality, Beizetsu didn't seem to have much reaction. In his opinion, Orochimaru just wanted to observe them, and he didn't care, or he didn't think Orochimaru could do it with just his Byakugan. I saw something in him. In Orochimaru's sight, 2 streams of light blue energy were entangled with each other. It was obvious that they were 2 different energies. A look of surprise appeared in Orochimaru's eyes, but he quickly hid it. Wow. At this moment, a ball of gold sand quickly emerged from the ground and blocked Ju's body. Lord Orochimaru, you don't want to treat me as a research subject, do you? A playful voice came. Haha. Orochimaru sneered at this. Mr. Zetsu is joking. Now we are firm allies. How could I regard you as a research subject? Orochimaru spoke slowly, his eyes trembling slightly as he spoke. The ferocious veins around his pupils disappeared, and he closed his white eyes. He definitely didn't believe a word of Orochimaru's words, and he felt even more difficult to deal with than Obito. He knew better than anyone else that he and Orochimaru were just using each other, and they were both seeking skin from the tiger. He had taken a fancy to something in Orochimaru's hand, and Orochimaru also had intentions for him. Looked at each other and finally burst into laughter. After a brief negotiation, they decided to make an appointment to meet again in 3 days. At that time, both parties would bring what they needed. Then Orochimaru turned around and left, leaving only Zetsu standing there with a complex expression. Orochimaru, a double-edged sword, if used well, will be a very good chess piece, but, looking at Orochimaru's leaving figure, a sharp light flashed in Black Zetsu's eyes. Black Zetsu, who claims to be the 3rd son of Otsutsuki Kaguya, has survived 4,000 of years. If there is anyone in the entire ninja world who knows the blood succession boundary best, it must be him. In today's ninja world, Sharingan and Byakugan are known as the two major pupil power and blood succession limits in the ninja world. Although there is no clear ranking of these two major pupil power and blood succession limits, because of Uchiha Madara, most people everyone thinks the Sharingan is superior compared with the Sharingan, which has dynamic vision and copying abilities. The Byakugan, which only has strong insight, does not seem to be as good as the former, but unlike everyone else, Black Zetsu knew very well that, although the Sharingan was powerful, it was still inferior to the Byakugan. In the records of the Otsutsuki clan, the Byakugan is the symbol of their pure bloodline, and it is also the most powerful. The Sharingan is just a bloodline mutation in the wrong direction. It was precisely because he knew this that Black Zetsu was so nervous when Orochimaru used his Byakugan to observe them just now. If he guessed correctly, Orochimaru should have noticed something unusual about him by now. Although he seems to have become one with White Zetsu now, Black Zetsu knows very well that that is just the surface. He and Beiju are two completely different life forms. Beizetsu is just a product he extracted from the heretic demon, a human being who was hit by the infinite Tsukuyomi in ancient times. And the reason why he was able to possess Beiju was just because he had a special ability. Black Zetsu's possession ability is extremely powerful. Even the old Madara didn't notice any abnormalities when using his Rinnegan, but the Byakugan was different. Black Zetsu is extremely aware of the Byakugan's ability. The Byakugan is like his nemesis, the only pupil technique that can see through his possessive ability. And Orochimaru not only has the Byakugan and blood succession limits, but also the corpse veins, thousand hands, whirlpool, sage body, Uchiha, sage eyes. The Kaguya clan has corpse bone veins and a fairy body, and the Hyuga clan has white eyes and fairy eyes. It is also very clear that these bloodlines spread to Black Jew, Otsutsuki, Hamura. I didn't expect that after 1,000 years, there are still people who can possess both corpse veins and Byakugan. Black Zetsu murmured in his heart, will there ever be a pair of eyes that transcends the Samsara eye in this ninja world? With this thought in his mind, Heniju looked up at the sky. At this time, night fell, and a white crescent moon appeared in the sky. No, we have to speed up the process. A ruthless look appeared on Zetsu's face. Uchiha Obito, Uzumaki Naraku, and then came Orochimaru, who had Hamura's bloodline. Heniju only felt that there were more and more variables. In order to ensure nothing went wrong, he decided that he had to summon that person first. Orochimaru, I hope you won't disappoint me. Ju's body slowly dived underground. In order to ensure that the transaction in 3 days could go smoothly, he had to prepare some things in advance. On the other side, Orochimaru had already walked out of the Rain Ninja village at this time. At this time, a thought flashed across his face. Black Zetsu guessed correctly. After observing Zetsu with his Byakugan, Orochimaru had already seen that Black Zetsu and White Zetsu were two different creatures. What he couldn't figure out was how these two creatures were formed. He had specially dissected and studied Beiju, but he only found that the cells in his body were very similar to the original cells. Each Beiju clone had a certain self-healing ability, but some were strong and some were weak. As for Black Zetsu, Orochimaru could not tell what kind of creature Black Zetsu was, perhaps because he had only seen it a few times. Hiss. Orochimaru stuck out his tongue and licked his lips. A look of excitement appeared in his eyes. If possible, he wanted to put Black Zetsu on the operating table and study it carefully. However, he knew that he and Ju were still superficially allies, so this idea could only exist in his mind and could not be exposed for the time being. However, Orochimaru has already remembered Black Zetsu in his heart, and he must study it carefully if there is a chance in the future. But now, cooperation with the other party is more important. After all, he also wants these eyes to go further. Orochimaru put his hand on his pupils, and a touch of uncontrollable excitement rose from his eyes. Above the Sharingan is the Rinnegan, and above the Byakugan, Tenseigan. Chapter 346. Terumi Mena's bold idea. The tens of thousands of ninja troops were led by the fourth Raikage himself, and even the eight-tailed Jinchuriki was brought along. At the border of Kirigakure village, Terumi was carefully looking at the information in her hand, frowning slightly. She did not expect that the fourth Raikage would move so quickly. It had only been 2 days since Sunagakure village was occupied, and the Kumo Ninja village and Iwa Ninja village had already begun major operations. A trace of loneliness flashed into Rumime's eyes. Whether it was military strength or cohesion, it was completely incomparable to the 3 villages of Kumo Ninja, Iwa Ninja and Konoha. Even compared to Sunagakure village, Kirigakure village is not much stronger. At most, it only has one more cage level powerhouse. Medi Terumi point shaking his head. Terumi Medi stopped thinking about these things. It no longer mattered which of the 5 major countries and 5 major ninja villages were strong or weak. Now the 4th Ninja World War had begun. Terumi Medi knew very well that after this battle, no matter who wins or loses, the situation in the ninja world will undergo great changes, and the divided regime of each country will end here. The ninja world must be unified. Terumi Medi secretly thought in her heart, and a trace of determination appeared in her eyes. For her, who has lived in the blood mist since childhood, there is nothing more worthy of pursuit than eternal peace. At this moment, there were sudden trembling sounds in the space beside her, and then a familiar figure appeared in her sight with long silver hair, a black mask, and a somewhat thin figure. The person coming was none other than Kakashi. At this time, you can see a touch of caution appearing on Kakashi's face. Like Terumi Medi, he also learned about Kumo Ninja's big move. Kakashi, who was still discussing some matters with Itachi in Sunagakure village, rushed over here as soon as he learned about it. Subtly, when he saw that Terumi Medi was safe and sound, he felt inexplicably relieved. Maybe even he himself couldn't explain the reason for this breath. Terumi Medi was not surprised by Kakashi's arrival. In the message sent to her by Tsunade, Kakashi was sent by Konoha village to help her. In fact, what Terumi Medi didn't know was that the reason why Tsunade sent Kakashi here was not only to protect Terumi Medi's safety, but also had another purpose. The 4th Raikage. Haha, let me go and meet you for a while first. Looking at Kakashi in front of him, a bold idea arose in Terumi Medi's heart. This time, there were a total of 5,000 Kiri ninjas guarding the border with Terumi Medi, and the number of Kumo ninjas was twice as many as this. Even if the number of ninjas was equal, Terumi Medi was not sure that their Kiri ninjas could better than Kumo ninja. What's more, there is such a big difference in the number of people between the two now. Therefore, Medi Terumi knew that it was impossible to compete with the 4th Raikage and the others with just 5,000 Kiri ninjas, so she had to take some other actions. Swish, swish. 5 minutes later, 2 figures quickly passed through the border of Kirigakure village and directly entered the border of the Kingdom of Thunder. The 2 figures, one silver and one brown, were Kakashi and Terumi Medi. Under Terumi Medi's suggestion, the 2 of them decided to take a preemptive strike. She and Kakashi secretly into the Kingdom of Thunder, and then launched a surprise attack on the 4th Raikage's troops. Of course, Terumi Medi also knows this very well. It is difficult for the 2 of them to truly compete with the tens of thousands of ninja troops with just the strength of the 2 of them. However, even if they cannot truly compete, for 2 people with shadow level strength it is said that it is very simple to return the whole body. In addition, Kakashi has also mastered the Flying Thunder God technique. No matter what, the 2 of them are invincible. But she never thought about taking care of all the tens of thousands of cloud ninjas. Terumi's meditation was just to delay time. She believed that, as long as she and Kakashi could hold off the Kumonin for some time, the reinforcement from Konoha village would definitely arrive in time. For Kakashi, although Terumi Medi's idea was a bit risky, he did not refuse it. He has enough confidence in his current strength. Even if he faces tens of thousands of ninjas at the same time, he has no fear at all. On the contrary, he is even a little excited. For Kakashi today, except for Orochimaru and Obito, there are only a few ninjas in the entire ninja world who can let him fight with all his strength. Even the 3rd Tsuchikage who once defeated him, Kakashi now has a certain degree of confidence that he can avenge his shame, so even tens of thousands of Kumo ninja cannot make him feel any fear. With the strength of the 2 of them, they easily evaded the inspections of the border guards of the Kingdom of Thunder, and entered the territory of the Kingdom of Thunder without any danger. Different from the fertile plains of the Fire Kingdom, the yellow sand in the sky of the Earth Kingdom, and the incomparably vast waters of the Water Kingdom, the Kingdom of Thunder is full of towering mountain peaks. Between the clouds and mist, there seems to be deafening thunder echoed point. Because they did not know the marching route of the fourth Raikage and the others, Kakashi and Terumi may split up. After entering the Kingdom of Thunder, they agreed that if anyone found traces of Kumo Ninja first, they would notify the other party as soon as possible. Kakashi left the Flying Thunder God Warlock on Terumi. If he discovered the Kumo Ninja himself first, he would directly use the Flying Thunder God Warlock to bring Terumi over. On the other hand, if Terumi discovers it first, he will use the Flying Thunder God Warlock to inform Kakashi. Swish, swish, a silver figure quickly traveled through a mountain range. It was Kakashi. After landing on a boulder, Kakashi stopped, and you could see his brows furrowing slightly. Looking at the mountains shrouded in clouds and mist in front of them, Kakashi knew that it would be difficult for them to find traces of the Kumo Ninja if they just relied on searching like this. Although they have tens of thousands of ninjas, the country of Thunder has a vast terrain. If they go in a different direction, they may really miss the Cloud Ninja troops. After a slight hesitation, Kakashi turned his head and looked to the side. There was a wooden tower-shaped building. He knew that it was a watchtower. Basically every ninja village would set up this kind of building in its own country to serve as a warning. There are ninjas stationed in every watchtower. Looking at the watchtower, Kakashi's only exposed right eye flashed with a gleam. As a former Anbu minister, he also knew an unwritten rule in the ninja village. That is, the person responsible for guarding the watchtower also has another task, which is to explore the route for his troops in the ninja village when a war occurs. Although not every guard in the watchtower would receive this mission, Kakashi decided to check it out. Chapter 347. 6 Immortals, Divided Tales, 9 Big-tailed Beasts. Boom. In the Kingdom of Thunder, there was a figure in a watchtower who seemed to have lost consciousness and fell to the ground. You can see 3 floating clouds on the forehead protector worn on the fallen ninja's head. This is the symbol of the Cloud Ninja village. Sure enough, isn't it this route? At this moment, a murmur sounded, and it was Kakashi who spoke. He was the one who knocked down the Cloud Ninja just now using a Jinjutsu without hesitation. Kakashi, who did not get any useful information from this person, left here in a flash. Just a moment later, his figure came to another watchtower again. Similarly, he once again used illusion to check the information in the other party's mind. But obviously, Kakashi's luck was not very good. He failed to obtain any useful information twice in a row, but he was not discouraged. You must know that it is necessary to have enough patience before becoming a qualified ninja. Swish. Kakashi's figure continued to travel through the Kingdom of Thunder, and his figure continued to appear in watchtowers. Finally, when he came to the 13th watchtower, he gained something new. The previous configuration of one person and one tower was different. Kakashi sensed the aura of 2 people in this watchtower, and he noticed it instantly. His figure flashed and rushed towards the watchtower. Who? A strong dark-skinned man let out a loud shout. His reaction was extremely fast. As soon as he noticed something abnormal, he had already raised his hands and started to form seals quickly. Thunder escape. Just when the guard had just finished forming the seal and was about to release the ninjutsu, a red light suddenly appeared in his sight, and the next moment, the guard's eyes trembled and his body swayed and fell to the ground. Then Kakashi's figure appeared in the watchtower. You could see that he had lifted up the forehead protector covering his left eye, and his scarlet left eye was emitting a mysterious red light. It seems this person doesn't know anything about it. Kakashi murmured softly in his mouth. He used Jinjutsu and did not find any important information in the guard's mind. Call out. At this moment, a sound broke through the air. Kakashi, who noticed the movement, looked up suddenly and saw a blue light appearing in front of him. Kakashi's pupils shrank suddenly. In his sight, the blue light was a shuriken covered with blue electric arcs. Noisy. The thunder shuriken ripped through the air and rushed straight towards Kakashi. Clang. There was a clear sound of metal collision, and Kakashi was seen holding a silver short blade, blocking the shuriken covered with blue thunder and lightning. Then Kakashi looked straight ahead, where a masked figure appeared. Anbu? Kakashi was a little surprised. He didn't expect to meet Anbu personnel from Kumo Ninja here. You must know that no matter which ninja village you are in, As a force directly led by the shadow, the whereabouts of the Anbu are extremely mysterious, and the tasks they perform are generally kept secret. Could it be? Looking at the Kumo ninja Anbu in front of him, a suspicion rose in Kakishi's heart, and then a sharp light flashed in his eyes. Noisy. The next moment, blue electric arcs surrounded Kakishi's body, and then he kicked his feet on the ground, and his whole body shot out like a thunder shadow, but it was already in front of the man in an instant. Kai, the silver short blade in his hand suddenly swung out, and a transparent blade suddenly burst out, tearing through the air, and slashing forward point buff. In an instant, a red blood splashed out. Although the strength of this Anbu was good, compared with the current Kakashi, the two were not on the same level at all. The Anbu, who only had the strength of a Jonin, was quickly defeated by Kakashi. Like the previous guard, he lost consciousness, and fell to the ground. At this time, the corners of Kakishi's mouth under the mask were slightly raised, revealing a smile. He had just obtained the whereabouts of the Kumo ninja army from this Anbu member. The troops were not far from here at this time, and this route was also the marching route they chose. Kakashi did not hesitate, after learning this information, and disappeared here in a flashpoint at the same time. More than 10 kilometers away, the ninja army led by the 4th Raikage was moving forward quickly. Because he was leading tens of thousands of people, the 4th Raikage deliberately slowed down his speed. Otherwise, with his strength, he would have reached the border of the Kingdom of Thunder by this time. There are also several figures around the 4th Raikage. In addition to the right-hand men known as Raikage, Nozomi and Eru, there is also a white-haired man wearing sunglasses, who is the 8-tailed Jinchuriki rabbi. Yo, I can finally leave the village and fight. Kiribi couldn't hide the excitement on his face. As the 8-tailed Jinchuriki, it is usually difficult for him to leave the village. Even if he is a perfect Jinchuriki, Kiribi can only leave the village when a war breaks out or there are other tasks. But this time, in addition to excitement, Kiribi felt more uneasy, especially the moment his eyes fell on the broken arm of the 4th Raikage. A trace of worry flashed across his face. Compare. At this moment, a dull voice sounded in Kiribi's mind. Kiribi was stunned for a moment when he heard the voice, and then slowly closed his eyes. When he opened his eyes, the things in front of him had changed dramatically. In a somewhat dark space, a huge creature that resembled an ox, but had the body of an octopus appeared in Kiribi's sight. It was the 8-tailed ox ghost. Little 8, you suddenly called me over. What's the matter? Kiribi was obviously very familiar with the 8-tails. He frowned slightly and asked directly. Compare. A trace of hesitation flashed across 8-tail's cow-like head, but in the end a trace of determination flashed in his eyes. Then he slowly opened his mouth, as if he was talking about something, but the latter's expression gradually changed, and finally he looked unbelievable. 6. Paths Sage. Divide the 10 tails into 9-tailed beasts. Kiribi, who returned to reality, still looked shocked. Just now, the 8 tails suddenly told him about the Sage of 6 Paths and the 10 tails. Kiribi, the Sage of 6 Paths, knew that he was the founder of Ninja Way, but the strange and familiar word 10 tails surprised him. According to the 8 tails, all the 9 existing tailed beasts in the ninja world were separated from the 10 tails. As a perfect Jinchuriki, Kiribi knows the abilities of tailed beasts better than anyone else. Being called a war machine, there is no doubt about the destructive ability of tailed beasts. In the vast ninja world, there are only a few people who can suppress tailed beasts with their own abilities. Chapter 348. It is indeed him, the tailed Jinchuriki. Tailed beasts are extremely terrifying in the eyes of most of the ninja world. Except for those strong men with shadow level strength, any ninja will definitely lose when facing a tailed beast. Even the weakest tailed beast is powerful enough to defeat dozens of jounin, not to mention those high up in the ranking of tailed beasts like the 8 tails and 9 tails. The 4th Hokage of Konoha village, the man who single-handedly suppressed his and his eldest brother's joint efforts, was called the Yellow Flash in the ninja world. Wasn't a man of such strength also died in the 9 tails rampage incident? If it is true, as the 8 tails said, that the 9-tailed beasts were all separated from the 10 tails by the Sage of 6 Paths, then Kiribi simply cannot imagine how powerful the complete 10 tails is. For a moment, Rabbi Kai's free and easy character actually became a little depressed. In the consciousness space, Eight Tails also noticed Kirabe's emotional changes, and a trace of worry appeared on Eight Tails' face. Like Kirabe, the Eight Tails is also afraid of the power of the Ten Tails, but while he is afraid in his heart, he is even more afraid of becoming a part of the Ten Tails again. After he was separated from the Ten Tails by the Sage of Six Paths, he and the other tailed beasts had independent thoughts. The Eight Tails has long thought that he is an independent life form, and he is not willing to become a part of the Ten Tails. So the Eight Tails, who sensed the danger, informed Kirabe of the information. He believed that as a partner, the other party would make the right move. Vulpix, Nanao, you guys, the Eight Tails secretly thought in his heart. They were both tailed beasts, and there was some vague guess in the Eight Tails' mind. He knew that there was a great possibility that something bad had happened to the Six Tails and the Seven Tails. This is not a guess, but a special perception. They are both tailed beasts, and there is more or less some connection between them. What's wrong, B? At this moment, a dull voice sounded in Kirabe's ears. He turned around and saw that it was the fourth Raikage who spoke. Looking at Kirabe's expression, a strange color flashed across Yondame's face. As Kirabe's eldest brother, he understands his younger brother's character very well and would not show such an expression under normal circumstances. It's the Eight Tails side. In an instant, the fourth Raikage thought of the Eight Tails. Because Kirabe was with him along the way and had no contact with other people at all, so the only thing that could make Kirabe change like this was the Eight Tails in his body. Compare. Just when the fourth Raikage was about to say something, his expression suddenly changed, and then he quickly raised his head and looked forward, only to see a vague figure not far away approaching them quickly. Noisy blocks of electricity flickered on the fourth Raikage's body, and a familiar force emitted from the figure in front. Instantly, the fourth Raikage's eyes became wary. Swish, swish, two figures flashed past, and Nozomi and Deru flashed in front of the fourth Raikage. Then they looked at each other and accelerated towards the figure in front of them. As Raikage's right-hand man, they are undoubtedly very qualified. When an enemy suddenly appears like this, without knowing the strength of the other party, it is undoubtedly the most correct choice for the two of them to test it. But they didn't notice that Kirabe, who was standing next to the fourth Raikage at this time, changed his expression, and then a powerful chakra burst out from his body. Instantly, boom, the air surrounding Kirabe suddenly condensed, and then his figure surged forward quickly. Looking at B's movements, combined with a somewhat familiar aura, the fourth Raikage's expression also changed, and a figure appeared in his mind. Silver. Fang Flash. Hatake Kakashi. Konoha village actually sent him here, the fourth Raikage secretly thought in his heart, and then he quickly raised his right hand. Dozens of ninjas following him reacted immediately after seeing the actions of the fourth Raikage. I saw them stop quickly, then turn around and signal the large army behind them to stop. The nearly 10,000 troops stopped in an instant, and their movements were not unpleasant. Although everyone was a little confused as to why Raikage ordered them to stop, no one in the nearly 10,000 troops spoke out of respect for Raikage. This shows the prestige of the fourth Raikage in the Cloud Ninja village. Swish. At this time, Kirabe, who was bursting at full speed, quickly caught up with Deru and the two, and then directly stretched out his hand to stop the two. Lord Kirabe? Z asked with some confusion. Deru on the side was also a little surprised by Kirabe's movements, but soon his pupils shrank, and in front, a figure slowly came out of the clouds with long silver white hair, a black mask, and a somewhat slender figure. Here's Kakashi. It's him. Deru was shocked. He was no stranger to Kakashi. After all, the name of Kakashi's shining silver teeth had long been resounding in the ninja world. It's indeed him, the Tail Jinchuriki. The voice of the Eight Tails sounded in the space of consciousness. He had just sensed the aura of the Tails, so Kirabe would do this. After all, whether it is Z or Deru, they are both outstanding young people in the Cloud Ninja village. Kirabe didn't want any accidents to happen to them. Crack, crack. But at this moment, a powerful force burst out from Deru's body, and visible to the naked eye, black thunder and lightning appeared around him. Swish. The next moment, Deru's figure flashed past Kirabe and launched an attack at Kakashi with a silver short blade. Deru, a look of surprise appeared in Kirabe's eyes. Although he didn't know Kakashi's current strength very well, He could sense that the opponent's strength was not inferior to his own, and even stronger than him. As for Koda Ryui, although he has good talent and inherited the black lightning of the third Raikage, he is still too young after all. He is only an elite Jonin now, and there is still a certain distance between him and the cage level point. Just when Kirby was about to stop Deru, a strong figure appeared beside him and stopped him. It was the fourth Raikage point. The fourth Raikage shook his head slightly at B, then turned his head and focused his eyes on Deru, who was surrounded by black lightning. A look of worry flashed across his face, replaced by a look of relief. Deru's talent is undoubtedly powerful, and it is no exaggeration to be called the #1 person in the entire Cloud Ninja Village. The black lightning on his body is the best proof point, but the fourth Raikage knew that the #1 Deru was only in Kumo Ninja Village. Whether it was Kakashi in front of him, or the man who destroyed one of his arms, they were both Deru's peers, but the gap was extremely huge. Chapter 349. This is using me as a sparring partner. The Land of Thunder, Big Brother, Kirby, frowned slightly. He didn't understand why the fourth Raikage reached out to stop him. He knew very well that with Deru's current strength, he could not be Kakashi's opponent. Could it be? Suddenly, Kirby seemed to have thought of something, and his frown gradually relaxed, but the expression on his face became more solemn. If you want to train this kid, you have to choose the right person, brother. Kirby thought to himself. At this time, he had already guessed the intention of the fourth Raikage and wanted to use Kakashi's hand to make Deru completely understand the reality. With Kakashi's current strength, it is not an exaggeration to be called the best in the ninja world among his peers. In fact, Deru knew that his strength was far from his opponent, but he still took action without hesitation. Thunder. Release. Black spot. Crack. Crack. A violent energy emitted from Deru's body, and black lightning as thick as a baby's arm burst out from his body and spread in all directions. Tear. Tear. The next moment, dozens of thunderbolts pierced the air and gathered in front of it, gradually forming a black leopard-shaped creature. The Black Panther formed by black lightning ripped through the air and rushed towards Kakashi in front. Black Thunder. It seems that this guy has quite a connection with the third Raikage. Facing the rushing Black Panther, Kakashi's only exposed right eye trembled slightly, with a hint of surprise flashing past, but he soon regained his composure. Kakashi had only seen records about the Black Thunder release of the third Raikage and the information. He, who was very good at the thunder release ninjutsu, was very curious about this kind of black thunder and lightning. Noisy. The next moment, blue thunder and lightning burst out from his body, and then Kakashi stretched out his right hand and pointed forward. Crack. Crack. Blue thunder and lightning exploded, and almost instantly, a thunder wolf with blue lightning flashing all over appeared on the field. For Kakashi today, this simple ninjutsu can basically be used without printing. Crackling. Crackling. On the field, the roar of thunder and lightning was endless, and the Black Panther and the Blue Wolf collided violently. In an instant, a powerful impact spread in all directions. Boom. The scattered thunder and lightning fell on the ground, instantly turning it black. At this moment, both the fourth Raikage and Kirby are staring ahead. If Deru is in any danger, they will react immediately. Let Deru face Kakashi alone, just to let him break through under heavy pressure. The fourth Raikage didn't really want Deru to deal with Kakashi. It can be seen that the fourth Raikage's body is also covered with blowups at this time. At such a close distance, he has absolute confidence that he can protect Deru. You're using me as a sparring partner. The actions of the fourth Raikage and Kirby did not escape Kakashi's observation, and he quickly realized their intentions. The corners of his mouth were slightly raised, and a sharp light flashed through his only exposed right eye. Boom. The next moment, violent energy surged out from Kakashi's body, and a blue arc of electricity as thick as an arm rushed forward. Boom. Almost instantly, the Black Panther, who had been suppressed by the Blue Wolf, was defeated at this moment, turning into several black arcs and splashing towards the surroundings. Tear it apart. After defeating the Black Panther, another blue thunderbolt burst out from Kakashi, tearing through the air and blasting towards Deru in front of him. Seeing this, Deru frowned lightly. He did not expect that Kakashi's thunder release ninjutsu was so powerful. You must know that his Black Thunder Release ninjutsu was much stronger than the ordinary Thunder Release ninjutsu point. Even in the Kumo Ninja Village, there was only the 4th Raikage who could surpass him in the Thunder Release ninjutsu point. However, although he was surprised, fortunately Deru was forced by the reputation of Kakashi's Silver Fang. He was already prepared. He kicked his feet on the ground, chakra surged in his body, and then his figure quickly fell to one side. At the same time, with his hands raised, he has also completed the seal. The next moment, a low drink came from his mouth. Land done, encourage and lock the harsh element. A ball of light blue water vapor was seen wrapping Deru's hands, and there was a faint flash of electric arc above the light blue water vapor point. Call out, call out, call out. In an instant, several sounds broke through the air, and dozens of streams of water were violently pumped in the direction of Kakashi. What was different from ordinary water streams was that these water streams were all covered with blue arcs of electricity. Erashi Release, a type of blood succession boundary, is a ninjutsu that combines water release and thunder release. It possesses the destructive power of thunder release and the control power of water release. Noisy. Looking at the laser-like ninjutsu in front of him, a hint of exploration flashed in Kakashi's eyes. The combination of water release and thunder release makes it possible for Kakashi, who is born with 5 chakra attributes, to use such a ninjutsu point. Kakashi's body, with blue arcs flashing around him, surged rapidly, and his whole body was like a thunder shadow, easily dodging the attacks of those water currents. If you have time, you can do some research, Kakashi secretly thought in his heart. Point guy. The next moment, a silver long knife appeared in his hand, and then Kakashi flashed. When he appeared, he was already behind Deru, and the silver long knife in his hand tore through the air and headed towards his back. Cut it down hard. Point Kakashi's speed was too fast. At this time, Deru had just noticed that something was wrong. He wanted to react quickly, but he felt a sudden chill on his back. The next moment, his body seemed to be hit by something. It's like being dragged away. The reaction is really fast. The 8 tails Jinchuriki, Kakashi murmured in his mouth. In his sight, Deru was being dragged by a huge tail, and he was soon nearly 100 meters away from him. How about it? At this moment, the slightly anxious voice of the 4th Raikage sounded on the field. It's okay, brother. Hatch's chakra is here, and he will recover soon. Kiraba's voice sounded on the field, and then a figure appeared in front of Kakashi, wearing sunglasses, dark skin, light yellow hair, and several sharp long knives behind his back. The person who came was none other than the 8 tails Jinchuriki, Kirabi. At this time, you can see that there is a thick tail behind Kirabi, and the other end of the tail is Deru, who was chopped by Kakashi. Point at this time, Deru was wrapped in a dark red energy, and the hideous wound on his back was recovering visibly to the naked eye. It is the chakra of the tailed beasts. As a perfect Jinchuriki, Kirabi, using the chakra of the 8 tails to save his companions, has long been commonplace. Chapter 350, The Woman in the Blood Mist. That ends is worthy of attention. Gudu. Dark red energy like bubbles enveloped Deru's body, and his injuries were soon stabilized. Thank you, Sir Kirabi. Deru, who stabilized his body, secretly thought in his heart, and then looked at each other with Z on the side, and slowly retreated towards the back. They both knew that the next battle was no longer something they could participate in. Especially Deru. He didn't even notice Kakashi's movements just now, and the other party had already come behind him. At this time, he felt extremely lucky. If it hadn't been for Kirabi, he would have probably encountered Kakashi by now. Something unexpected happened. Kakashi didn't care about the departure of Deru and the two. In fact, if he hadn't held back just now, even if Kirabi rescued him, he would have left Deru here. But this time Kakashi's mission was just to delay the march of the Kumo Ninja army, so Deru's life and death was not important to him. Take Kakashi, are you declaring war on our Cloud Ninja village on behalf of Konoha village? At this moment, a low shout sounded, and then a strong figure appeared in front of Kakashi. It was the 4th Raikage. Forehead. Faced with the 4th Raikage's question, Kakashi was slightly stunned, and he felt a little speechless. As far as he knew, the information that Konoha village occupied Tsunagakure village, and was preparing to launch war against Earth Country had already reached Kumo Ninja village. In his opinion, the fourth Raikage's actions now were just deceiving himself and others. Lord Raikage, Kakashi put away his smile, looked at the fourth Raikage opposite with a serious face, and then slowly spoke in a deep voice. The ninja world is going to be unified. The Raikage and Kirby were shocked when they heard this. Although the various performances of Konoha village had shown their purpose of unifying the ninja world, they were still shocked when Kakashi said it himself. Point to unify the ninja world. You must know that in the 1000-year history of the ninja world, except for the period of the Six Paths Sage, no period has ever been unified. No matter what period it is, there are constant wars between various tribes and families. There are only killing point. This situation of killing each other and constant wars only got better after the Senju pillar appeared and took the lead in establishing a one village one country system. However, several wars still broke out. The second, third, and now fourth ninja war all broke out within a few decades after the establishment of the 5 major nations. On average, there will be a ninja war in less than 10 years. In fact, it is not that the fourth Raikage has not thought about unifying the ninja world, and he is not the only one. Except for the first batch of cages, the other cages in the 5 major ninja villages have all thought about unifying the ninja world. This is also the origin of the second and third ninja war. It's just that no one can do it. Even the fourth Raikage himself, who has the strongest military power in the country of Thunder, has no confidence that he can unify the ninja world. The invasion of Konoha village many years ago was just to gain some benefits. But now, what he dared not even think about, the Leaf village has begun to take action. Although the Leaf village has not yet succeeded, they have taken the first step and openly declared war on the entire ninja world to unify the ninja world. What kind of courage is this, and what kind of confidence is needed? At this time, the fourth Raikage suddenly admired the fifth Hokage of Konoha village, Senju Tsunade. However, this thought only flashed in my mind for a moment. No matter what the move of Konoha village is to unify the ninja world, it is undeniable that the current Konoha village is the enemy of their Cloud Ninja village. No matter what, he will not succumb to the Leaf village. This is what the fourth Raikage is thinking now. Humph. A cold snort came out of his mouth, and then the fourth Raikage took a step forward. Blue light flashed on his body, a violent aura burst out from him, and his eyes were full of coldness. To unify the ninja world, Konoha village is really arrogant. Even the first Hokage would not dare to say that he wants to unify the ninja world. And Kirby on the side also had a surge of momentum. The next moment, swish, Kirby, holding a long knife, rushed straight towards Kakashi. The long knife tore through the air and shone with a cold light. Facing Kirby's offensive, a bright light flashed in Kakashi's eyes. He was no stranger to the 8-tailed Jinchuriki, who was also good at swordsmanship. The last time he came to Yun Ninja Village to challenge the fourth Raikage, he had a duel with Kirby, including a swordsmanship contest. Of course, he won. Wait a moment, be right back. Just when the cold light was about to touch Kakashi, the space around him suddenly began to shake, and then Kakashi's figure, visible to the naked eye, began to become illusory. Swish. The next moment, his figure disappeared from the spot. The fourth Raikage and Kirby frowned slightly when they saw this. The former tightened his heart and quickly turned his head to focus on the large army behind him. He thought Kakashi had avoided them. Attack others. After looking around and finding no sign of Kakashi, he slowly breathed a sigh of relief. However, at this time, Raikage also realized a serious problem. If Kakashi really broke into their large army, it would be like a wolf among the sheep for him who mastered the Flying Thunder God technique. Raikage is not worried that Kakashi can kill tens of thousands of ninjas by himself, because this is not realistic. Although he is very strong, he is not that strong yet. What Raikage is worried about is that Kakashi, who possesses the Flying Thunder God technique, can appear in their team at any time. He even said that, if the opponent wants to kill someone, no one present except him, and Kirby can escape. Come on. If Kakashi really uses this tactic, then their ninja army will have to pay some price if they want to reach the border safely. Thinking of this, Raikage's face gradually became ugly. But at this moment, a sound of space trembling suddenly came, and only 10 meters away from the front of Kirby, the originally stable space there was now fluctuating like a tide, and then two figures appeared there. The Raikage's pupils shrank when he saw the coming people. One of them was Kakashi, who had just left here, and the other one was he has long crisscrossed reddish brown curly hair, green eyes, and is dressed in a neat ninja costume. The fifth Mizukage, Terumi Mei. A look of surprise appeared in Raikage's eyes. Although he had never met Mei Terumi, he had obtained information about her. The woman in the blood mist that ended was worthy of people's attention. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.